This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Welcome everybody to the Easthampton City Council Finance Committee's budget meeting for May 28th of 2026. We have a bunch of things to get through tonight. So I want to have a little conversation. Well, okay, so first of all, we don't have any minutes to approve. Mayor communication, is there anything?
Okay, pressing right now.
All right. So before we go into public speak, I just want to sort of lay out the way we've been doing this so far. And the way I think we'll keep doing this is there's basically what we're going to do is I'll have a section for public speak at the beginning. And if you want to speak about anything that isn't the specific budgets that we're talking about tonight, so just to clarify what those are, tonight we're going to be talking about public works, enterprise, culture and recreation, and then we're also going to be talking about the building department and the health department. So those are what we're talking about tonight. If you have any sort of big picture thoughts or any questions about things that you've seen in previous things or other questions that you have, or any sort of public speak that isn't those specific things, please talk about it in the public speak section that's about to start. If you want to talk about the specific budget items, then what we're going to do is we go through these budgets. For each one, we're going to go through the budgets. We're going to talk about the section in the scenario where the override passes, and then we're going to talk about the scenario that the override fails. And once we've talked about both of those, we will open it up for people to who have any questions or comments or suggestions or anything like that. I will give, if members of the public have any questions, I will give the department heads an opportunity to answer, but I also understand that there might be questions where the department heads do not have the data in front of them and they might need to answer. So if there's something that a department head or member of the city believes they can answer, but they don't have the ability to answer at that exact moment, then I would just encourage people to just email the full council with that information so that folks can follow along with it. Any questions about that? Okay. So general public speak, if anyone has something that they want to ask.
Sorry, again, we have a quorum of counselors, so if you could just speak to that.
Yes, we do have a quorum of counselors. So if you are a city councilor, you are welcome here as a member of the public, but please behave like a member of the public and please do not attempt to deliberate with the other counselors because that would be an open meeting law violation. Okay. Anyone have any general public speak about anything other than the specific budget items that we're going to be discussing tonight?
Kathy Wazinski, Overlook Drive. I wanted to bring to the attention, and I'm sure you've heard it from other people, the city council, a concern that lots of parents have brought to me. School staff are discussing with students the cuts that are pending, as teachers have an amazing and wonderful influence on students, and I don't think they intended to cause issues, but there are issues being caused within families because of discussions that teachers have had with students, and if parents are not sure about whether they're voting yes or no, and there's now conflicts within families because of those discussions. I've heard that teachers have told students, if this gets cut, you won't have drama, you won't have art, those aren't discussions that should be had with students. Those are discussions that parents can have with kids, but teachers should not be having those discussions with students. And it's causing conflicts within families, and we already have many families that are dealing with mental health issues with kids and adults, and for their teachers to be doing stuff that's causing more problems is really disheartening.
Thanks, Kathy. Anybody else have anything they want to talk about? If you're online, you can raise your hand by clicking the little hand button, the ribbon at the bottom of the screen. No? Okay. All right. So we have a bunch of things to get through tonight. I think I want to generally prioritize folks who are in the room over folks who are online, just in terms of department heads. But I also, John, have a desire to, I want to get you out of here soon because you've just been dealing with some stuff. So here's what I'm kind of thinking is, for just a general approach here, is that because you also have some public works stuff. So this is a little bit roundabout, but I think it makes sense. Let's talk about parks first and recreation, just your whole section. And then let's talk about your sections of public works, and then you can get out of here. And then from there, we'll take it from, I think we'll go through the rest of public works and then enterprise, and then we'll come back to the rest of culture and recreation, building department, health department. Does that make sense? Okay. So let's start with parks.
Yes, override.
Yes, override first, and then we'll talk about no override, and then we'll just keep going from there.
Sure. Perfect. Would you like me to share? And if so, you give me permission.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Sorry.
That eerie music coming through the glass is a cool vibe for this. Okay, your co-host.
And with or without override first?
With override first.
So the parks budget, you'll see most of our increases through the years have been to the electric. We have 11 accounts within the parks department for our pavilions, our pool, spray park, Millside, the kitchenette, Pavilion 1, ball fields. So we've seen quite a bit through the years in that, and same with, excuse me, pool chemicals is another one that we've seen a large increase through the years. Going back for fun, I went back to 2014, 13 years ago, and just electricity and pool are up 11,500. Our budget in 13 years has gone up in the expense side by 15,000. 11,500 of that is from electricity and pool chemicals. The other accounts in the last 13 years, we're averaging a $320 per year increase in our budget. So we've kind of towed the line for pretty much every year since I've been here for 17 years. So those types of costs of electricity and pool are just out of our control with chemicals and chlorine. You just don't know what you're going to get for cost on any of those.
Okay. Counselors, questions about the with override?
I just have we didn't talk about salaries, I don't think. Can you just share with me the discrepancy of temp positions, why it's 171 and 145? 145,000 and 171,000?
So 145 is the cut. You're talking about the non-override. Yeah, so
Let's go to the no override after.
But no, I'm just trying to understand that discrepancy.
so that will be some of our maintenance staff that work less hours. That'll be security, potentially some toll booth hours. So non-benefited temporary seasonal employees will be affected by that.
Right, okay, so that's what I'm trying to understand, 171, what that entails.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
So do we want to just switch to the no override then?
So the no override, as I just discussed with the temporary positions, will impact some of our employees that the parks staff does not collect overtime for they work a 40-hour week, whether it's Sunday through Thursday or Tuesday through Saturday, whatever it may be. We offset some of those weekend hours so they can have a more regular Monday through Friday schedule by bringing in seasonal maintenance employees that may just work 8 hours, once a week for us on a Sunday, or 20 hours during the prime season of Sunday, Monday, and half day Tuesday. So those positions that help offset total cost and not having any overtime for our staff, those positions will have an impact on our service. So we're committed to doing the details and the work that's required when we're in prime season, the July, the August, the September. But as we get into October, we might have to, maybe close pavilions down, a week earlier, 2 weeks earlier, and maybe open them later next spring by a week or two. So I don't have to bring in the extra staff to pay to provide those services. The other reductions would be pool chemicals. We are going to have a pool this year, and Camp Nonotuck gets the pool for 2 hours during the week for the first 2 hours, Tuesday through Friday. But Camp Nonotuck pays for that pool as well. Last year, they contributed $12,000 towards salaries, chemicals, and other things that are associated with the pool. So camp will be more active in paying for chemicals this coming year if in needs of the pool if this override fails.
Just in terms of temp positions, does that include lifeguards?
That's not in this one, no. No, that's in recreation.
Can you just for my benefit, help me understand what falls specifically into parks and what falls specifically into recreation?
So parks is maintenance of all the parks in the city. Recreation is more activity based. So that's why the pool is more considered activity. Camp Nonotuck, you'll see that we do FTEs for Camp Nonotuck, even though the $0 from the city budget goes towards Camp Nonotuck. It's actually reversal. Camp Nonotuck offsets a lot of costs that would be in this budget if we didn't have Camp Nonotuck.
Okay. So then the main thing that I'm seeing in the parks is that there's some part-time help that would not be coming in. And that part-time help is generally there to help you avoid the employees working overtime. Is there a scenario where employees would have to work overtime now to deal with some of the maintenance things, or would those maintenance things just fall to the side if they don't happen?
They wouldn't fall to the side because that's not how we operate. But they would, maybe instead of going out and mowing every Friday like we do for Millside and downtown and everywhere else, maybe it becomes every 10 days or, and it's not as clean and neat as we prefer. But, that could be some of the things that we look at. It's just general maintenance of pushing off some certain things and how we'd handle it.
Okay.
So you said that you would open late, close early. Roughly how much revenue would be lost to the city? You had to kind of guesstimate.
None.
The pavilions aren't used during those kind of,
Because we open, we have our soft opening pretty much in the middle of March because all the leagues and everybody wants to get into the park. I do closing of the gates during that time. I'm very light with my security hours during that time. The park officially full on May 1st until first week of October. So those revenue generating opportunities would still stay there. It's the staying open till Thanksgiving and having staff come in and making sure we still have, bathrooms open and pickleball and other activities. Those types of things would be cut. So it wouldn't be during the revenue generating times.
Okay. Members of the public, or sorry, any more questions from counselors? All right. Anyone from the public have any questions, comments about the parks budget with or without the override? Elsewhere.
I have a question. I might have missed it. Did you do without the override already? Yes. Would the pool be closed or would it?
That's going to go under recreation.
It's under recreation.
So we're going to talk about that next.
I just don't want to miss anything.
I have one more question. So when we were looking at the initial budget document, there was a there was a set under the parks. It was one of the more striking things where, it's such a small department, but it was sort of striking that for the FTEs that were in the park, for the first two, it shows the last 4 fiscal years. So for the first 2 of those fiscal years, it has 5 full-time FTE. For the benefit of the public, an FTE is a full-time equivalent. So if 2 people work 20 hours a week, for instance, that should be for a whole year, that should be 1 FTE. If 4 people work 10 hours a week, that should also be 1 FTE. Like it's basically one full-time worker's amount of work. Or at least that's how we think about it in economics. I assume that's how you think about it in government HR too. So the first 2 years, the FTEs said 5 people, and the second 2 years, it was 5.06, 5.06, and then it was 15 in the last 2 fiscal years, which would suggest a tripling of staff. And so my understanding is that that is an error, and I'm hoping that you can help me understand and help the public to understand that error.
Yeah, so I've been here for a lot of years and going back for a number of years. We always calculated our FTEs. I still do it on my budget as we move along. The last few years, we haven't been asked to submit our FTEs as part of this process. So they were taking, it looks like after doing much research into this, because it was kind of laughable when I saw the number, it was positions that was being logged in as FTEs, not full-time equivalency workers. So for example, I have 2 toll booth, 3 security people that combined don't make 1 FTE. We're all recorded as FTEs. So they're showing 5 and it's not even 1 between them. Then I have seasonal laborers that are the same. I have 2 39-week positions, and then I have some 25-week positions and some 20-week positions. So in general, the number is totally out of whack. And I've resubmitted those numbers from 26 actuals, and actually I sent Tom going back to 2021 fiscal year. We have not gained any employees in the last. I went back to 2010 today. In the last 17 years, we haven't gained any employees. So that FTE was a mistake in the budget book. and rec, actually. We can get to rec after. So our FTEs with the override would be 5.81, same as last year. And without, it would be 5.20. So we basically lose 0.61 of FTEs.
Is Director Russo on the call? No, that's awesome. Okay. Thanks for looking into this. And I also want to say thank you to Kira, who I think might have, this was something that 2 weeks ago I asked about, because I had asked the police the same question and they said, this doesn't look right. And I got an email from Chief Alexander where he said, I think that what's going on here is something with the specials, but that didn't exactly make sense to me because, well, how many specials would you need to be like that kind of FTEs? So I have been confused about this and looking forward to asking you about it. And last night to asking the schools about it. The schools also said they had no understanding of what's going on. I feel like I need to say something about this before we move forward. This is completely unacceptable. We are in the middle of making a huge ask to our taxpayers, and those taxpayers are looking to this city for correct information. I've been talking in my capacity as a city councilor and in my capacity as a homeowner and a private citizen about what I've experienced being on this finance committee for 4 years. And what I've experienced is a lot of department heads coming to me and saying, well, it's not quite as much revenue as we'd like. We have all these increased costs, but we're gonna figure out how to deal with it by getting smart here and getting creative over here. And maybe we're gonna have to cut back on this thing over here. And that's what I saw every year. And so then I never really, and here, I'll take some responsibility for this. It's not okay that I did it. I never really looked at the FTE section because I was busy looking at these sections that actually showed the expenses. So it didn't occur to me how absurd it would be that the Parks Department could have their revenue grow from 117,000, 124,000, 129,000, and somehow in that same period, their payroll, their FTEs triples. How's that possible? That you could have your employment go up by $4,000, $5,000, and your payroll, the number of full-time equivalent people, triple. So what I've been going around is telling people that this is the world that I've experienced as finance director is one where we've been trying to maintain level services in the face of enormous costs. The most salient and impactful piece of evidence that has been presented as an argument to the case that I've been trying to make is a piece of is a page in our own budget book that contains misinformation. I'm seeing red about this. I cannot possibly explain how furious I am. When people go to the city website, they should be finding information that helps them to understand things better, not worse. I understand from a conversation I had with the mayor today that there's work being done right now to rectify this. And I appreciate that there's work being done to rectify this. But for the last 2 weeks, I have been asking the HR department to clarify what is going on here because I have been repeatedly being faced with the same number over and over again. Where did these 61 positions come from? And I've been asking myself every night, how the hell I let 61 people get hired over these 4 fiscal years when all I saw year over year was people struggling to maintain their current levels of employment. So I'm very interested to see where those numbers come from. have a couple things that I want to say about it. The first is I just want to reiterate, I'm furious about this. I have never had less faith in a city employee than I currently have in the people in our HR department. And this is not going away. This is going to be a consistent thing. And this is not the standard that this council, I think I can speak for everyone, is going to hold our central government to. Absolutely unconscionable that people have been misled and they might in ways that might affect their voting by information that is in a city budget. I am furious about that. So that's the first thing I'm going to say. In the short term, what this means, I as chair will not be entertaining any motion to move any section of this budget forward to the full council until we get this fixed. And beyond that, I think that there's folks, starting with myself, who owe the residents of this city a huge apology for letting this get to this point and for taking so long to fix it. So I hope that a lot of you will join me in saying, I'm very sorry that we messed this up so hard. Mayor.
I share your frustration, and I think it's just worth noting that this mistake in the budget book goes back to 2024.
Mhm.
This is not a new mistake.
No.
So I just want to make sure that that's very clear, that this mistake was first put into the budget book FY24.
Yeah.
And we are catching it now, which I
Right.
think is important. But I think I want to make sure that we're saying that as robustly as we can, that this is not a mistake that was made during this budget cycle. This was something that we caught during this budget cycle.
Right. We caught it because suddenly we had to make an enormous ask to people and a lot
Exactly.
more people put their eyes on the budget. FTEs whenever I've gone through this, I've kind of had tunnel vision on the specific sections that I'm looking at. But yeah, myself and the other four counselors the other counselors who were here and the counselors who were gone, we let this irregularity in the way that this is calculated go unnoticed. And I can't tell you how sorry I am for that, but we're going to get this fixed and we're going to make sure that people understand it. And this is not the sort of standard that we are going to be holding the city to going forward. I can promise you that. Councilors, do you have any questions in light of that or comments or?
No questions, equally frustrated, equally apologetic. I think that this has been very confusing. When this first came out, I was asked why we've hired 100 new people since 2019, which I've been trying to understand and figure out. I reached out to our auditor to try to understand what does this mean. And that's not her responsibility, obviously, but more recently, last night, 60 new people, et cetera. So I think there has been just a lot of confusion and equally frustrated with where this information is coming from. And I think that needs to be addressed.
Something like that. All right. All right. I'm ready to move on. Just one more thing.
Can I
Just
comment on that? quickly?
sure. Yes.
I think the department head should go back to putting FTEs together and submitting with in the budget packet. The way it used to be with the cover page, who the department head is, how many people are under, and then you calculate what each FTE is. It's it's the same kind of form I gave you. That's something that got taken out of the budget book, a couple of years ago, but that's something that I think could help relieve some of the confusion because it's laid out in front of everybody so you can see it when it gets to that point.
I think that's probably a good direction to go in, and I think that we can probably come up with some documentable best practices for how one does that when you're talking about salaried people and seasonal people and people with different lengths of work weeks. Like, I'm not saying this is a trivial task. I'm saying that it's an important task that needed to get done right, and it wasn't. I do see some people in the hallway. There are a couple chairs over here. Okay. And well, if anyone else comes in, please let them know. Okay. So, all right, that's parks. I'm so mad I could spit, but it's okay. Let's go to recreation. I don't think you switch to the with override recreation.
Okay, recreation, the good, the temporary positions here is where the pool manager, lifeguards and all that, fall within. So that's your temporary positions for that fall under recreation. Another point of reference, in FY 13 years ago, our expense line was 4150. And for the good for this year, we're looking at 4298 for, in the last 13 years, we've averaged $11 per year in the expense line, in recreation. Once again, we hold tight on numbers and we do what we can when it comes to budgetary dollars.
Questions about the with override scenario? All right, let's talk about without the override.
The bad. Written down. So you'll see the temporary positions here is the pool staff. We are going to have a pool, whether it's 5 days a week or 6 days a week, is yet to be determined. I will have to work with the numbers we are presented. We have hired lifeguards. We are set to go. I have a baseline number for lifeguards currently because I do not want to hire more lifeguards and have the potential of them not having a full-time job. So we have 4 full-time lifeguards hired for this coming season, and we will work with what we have after June 9th. And we will push hard to get more lifeguards if needed. So any communication that the pool will not be open this year is false. And that's a false narrative. The pool will be open. And like I said earlier, Camp Nonotuck, because they get full access to the pool for themselves for a couple hours each day, will be invested financially in chemicals and things that are needed to make sure we have an operational pool this year. It will have public hours as well. It's just, we're not sure how many hours I'll have to budget the season out.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, what you're saying is that in the case of the no override, the hours will be more limited?
It'll be more limited or same amount of hours, taking another day off. So instead of 6 days a week, it'll be 5 days a week. Right now we do maintenance Mondays. So every Monday, the maintenance staff goes in, vacuums it, does a backwashing, all the chemicals, everything, treats it and gets it ready for Tuesday through Sunday. Because after a bather load of a full weekend, it is very important to give it a good thorough cleaning, bathrooms, everything on Monday. We will look at how we can structure based on whatever dollars were handed coming up for July 1st.
Is the pool serves as a cooling center, if I'm not mistaken, because of
The pool and the spray park. Yeah, the spray park's free, so that's more the cooling center because it is a free activity, and we expand the hours for the spray park during any heat emergency. So normally it is from like 11 to 7. We'll go from like 9 to 8 at night. We'll expand those hours to make sure we have a cooling center for the city.
Another question. I just noticed longevity. Most of the other departments dropped that to 250, and I'm just curious. I see they're the same, and so is that for 2 people? Is that for
That's
one
2
person?
people. That's Sam and I.
And then I also see longevity for in the parks then, where it says 250 and one is 750.
It should be 750. That is something that's not correct. Those are unless they've changed the longevity, those were the agreed upon longevity standards. I think it's.
And that's for the
That's for the foreman.
Okay, great.
I think it's 250 every 5 years or something.
Yep.
Something like that. And as far as, can I speak to the FTEs on that?
Sure.
So FTEs were inaccurate as well on the budget page for the city. Actuals were 6.02. In our FTEs, ours are different. 6 or 7 years ago, Camp Nonotuck is a huge employer of young people during the summer season. Our temporary camp positions is 3.25. That's how many employees we hire per camp season and how many hours they work. So our FTEs are represented in there, but those are zero budgeted dollars and zero benefit dollars for the city. So our FTEs, if you take that out, and there's also 0.10% for school supervisors in our skate program, 3.35 FTEs out of that 6.02 is actually non-budgeted, non-impact on the city whatsoever. If we have the override, it's 6.27, and the increase is only in camp. So that number is not going to change one way or the other. We've hired more camp. Camp sold out in a week. So, it's a very successful program, and we overhire to make sure we're meeting safety standards. If we don't have the override, we lose 0.5, which is pool positions, and that'll get us down to 5.74 FTEs.
I may have missed this because I was thinking about something else. The recreation in-state travel, I'm assuming that's for
That's me using my personal vehicle to drive around the city. And a prime example is today when I go over to Millside and I'm meeting other city departments, they're all rolling in their own city vehicles and I'm driving my truck over. So that's always been whatever the mileage is, doing my daily activity of coming up here 3 or 4 times a day from the park office, traveling all over the city, checking on everything and the park.
and recreational is
Recreational that's pool supplies, like cleanings, things like that, toiletries, that type of stuff. We also, any repairs, bench repairs, anything like that, I usually pull out of that and not take out of the park portion. So that's like our maintenance account.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Anyone in the public have any questions about the recreation budget?
Kevin, with Overland Drive, I have 2 questions. Did a modest increase in fees impact what would be doable within the park? I mean, it's pretty inexpensive.
Yes. So, and that's such a tough thing we juggle a lot. One of the reasons camp sells out is because we're affordable. We are like 50% cheaper than anybody else. Residents pay taxes and they pay a lot of fees for a lot of things. So we try to make sure we toe the line on reasonable fees. And when it comes to the pool, and I use this example today, if we jump to $8 for people to use the pool, the only people that would come to the pool that can afford to put one in their backyard. We want to make sure we are providing recreational resources at a modest level for our residents. And that's been my model since I walked in the door, and I'm proud that we've held to that.
And the other question I have is, I see in some of the budgets, office supplies, and then I see in the central purchasing, there's lots of lists of office supplies for multiple different departments. Is there potential savings in centralizing that? Not necessarily a question to you, but
I can speak to that. So they did centralize it several years ago, and then it just turned out to be better to go back to the departments unless you're buying in bulk for like the entire city at one time of something that the whole city needs for office supplies. But yeah, that's kind of gone back and forth through the years.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody online have any questions about the recreation budget? Beth, go ahead and unmute. Beth? Beth, you're not muted, but we can't hear you. All right, Beth. We can't hear you, but why don't you like jump back in later if you can figure it out, or else just shoot me an email and I'll make sure that whatever questions you have get answered. Luzette and Anthony?
Hi, are folks able to hear me clearly?
Yes.
Perfect. So I have a question. Let me know if this fits within, the context of our discussion. Being that our pool is outdoors, and I don't think Williston even has like an outdoor pool. They only have an indoor pool. I would imagine that there are times where students may be using that pool. And I guess I just want to connect that to, have we heard anything yet from the mayor's request to Williston to provide any like more funds?
My understanding is that conversation is ongoing.
I haven't heard anything recently.
Okay. The mayor has not
So
heard
there's
anything.
been no response at this time, it sounds like?
It's fair to say.
No agreement at this time, it sounds like.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Beth, I see your hand again.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, great job.
Just curious, and maybe I missed this because I came in late. The fees collected from the park for the camp and the entrance fees in the swimming pool, those fees do they go to the park or they go to the city funds?
Yeah, so we were just talking about that last night during our revenue section. Those are just part of our local receipts. So they go, we estimate what those are, and they are part of the pot of money that we estimate that we have when we're building our budget. But they're not like earmarked for the park or any specific thing. They can be used towards any department. Same with the ambulance fees, same with any number of other similar things.
Very good, thank you.
And can I speak to that?
Of course.
So I've been charting since 2010 our income that we do turn over to the city. And I can't do it. I do it by calendar and not physical because we fall during the season. But last year we turned over $130,539. And that includes vehicle, entrance fees, picnic sites, pavilion, gazebo, band shell rentals, the pool, and then cemetery. And I have a copy for you. You can take it actually. I have extra copies for you guys. I usually like to hand these out as finance. So you can see the history. The year before, we turned over almost $140,000 during our operations. So we try, we will look at it next year. And here, the chair of the Parks and Rec Commission is here. We talked about it this year about whether we wanted to increase fees because we have kind of toed the line for a couple of years now. I think in hindsight, and I don't want to speak for the commission, but maybe if this was on the forefront January 1, we might have looked at increasing some fees because we are very affordable, but at a gradual basis and not really just to do it to raise revenues. It will be looked at next year. It's too late to do it this year. People have already put deposits down, paid for pavilions. They've already paid for vehicle passes and those types of things. We will be looking at revenues, for what we can provide.
Is there for pavilions, is there a cost for residents and non-Easthampton residents?
Yeah, so we have residents and non-residents, and it's generally like 25-30% cheaper for residents than it is for non-residents. One of the things that we have to be mindful of when we're talking fees in the park is when you when we accept a park grant for a project, the state will never allow you to charge more than double what you charge a resident. So if we were going to do $3 for vehicle entry, we couldn't do $6 at the most we could do for non-residents. Or if it was the pool, if we charge $3, we can only charge $6 for non-residents, that type of thing. So I have to submit a fee schedule to the state every year for the grants that we have accepted, and not through the years.
Julie, I see your hand. Go ahead and unmute.
Whoops, can you hear me?
I can.
Thank you. Julie Slavitt, 14 Nichols Way. I just had a couple of questions. One of them was about the fees, because I think reviewing fees is a good thing to do. And notice that there was, the non-resident fee, which I think makes sense to sort of push as high as you can go with that. And it's helpful to understand what the state requirement is, which is familiar. I've heard that in other states. The other question is just, I know that this department also manages the cemetery.
That's going to come up in a separate.
Okay.
We have that. We were going to go through the different things, so that'll be coming up soon.
All right. Thank you, Counselor.
Thank you. All right. Any last thoughts on recreation? All right. I think cemetery is the next one, right?
That is correct.
I've got so many things.
So cemetery, you want to wait?
You can start talking.
So cemetery, the good is, business as usual. Our expense line request is $45.75. And once again, I'll reference 13 years ago, it was $38.75. So we've averaged a $54 per year increase on our expense line in cemeteries. And if you went through the cemetery, Brookside this past Memorial Day weekend, quite proud of the work they do for a budget that small. It's pretty amazing. There's my plug for those guys. So there's the good. And then we'll be looking at a slight cut, and it's tough for cemetery foreman is 35 hours a week. Currently, not 40 already. My cemetery assistant laborer is 30 hours a week. We have 3 cemeteries, Main Street, Brookside, and East Street. You're looking at, minimum man hours for what they have to do. Thank God for zero-turn mowers and tractors to dig holes, because we would never catch up on anything. So they have the equipment to help get by. But by the time they get done mowing cemeteries this time of year, they're right back mowing and weed whacking. It's just a rotation of nonstop work. So, one of my concerns here is even if we lose a little bit of hours in the cemeteries, it's a cherished space that people get emotional with. And if you start letting cemeteries become disrepair, it doesn't bode well for reflecting on us. So this is one that it's tough, even if it's just a couple hours a week. This one's tough to chew because of those places that we were responsible. We were, for lack of a better term, Main Street was dumped on our department cemetery several years ago, and with a very little budget to maintain and very little hours. We have 7.5 hours a week dedicated to Main Street Cemetery. There is a group out there that is going to be doing some charitable work at Main Street, and thank goodness for them, because without that, we would be really behind on some of this stuff. They're going to work on doing stone restoration, and there'll be an announcement coming up in the next couple of weeks about what they're looking to do and how they're going to raise money to bring Main Street back, because it's quite historical. Speaking of historical, Brookside is on the National Registry for Historical locations. So to have any hours cut from National Registry, in a historical place would be a shame. So that's my plight for the cemetery. Bad situation.
So it would be a total of, just looking at this, going from 2 FTE to 1.85.
Yeah.
So how many hours would that translate into?
It's like a couple hours a week is what it comes down to. So yeah, that's where we'll be. And I've been very transparent with my staff across the board with this whole entire process. So everybody's fully aware of what's on the horizon, good, bad, and ugly.
Okay. Councilors, any questions? All right. Anyone from the public have any questions about the cemetery budget? Councilor Kwasinski.
Mr. Mason, thank you very much for your comments and for the hard work you've done to make this all kind of fit together and make sense to the people of the city and to make sense for our parks and recreation. When you mentioned the cemeteries, you mentioned that Main Street was dumped on you, on your department. I remember that very clearly. And I remember you're kind of smiling to take it on. You took it bravely, I think.
We
Like you always do. My point is that cemetery and its condition with regard to the stonework for the grave headstones of members who fought in the Revolutionary War, to walk through that cemetery and see stones on their sides, on the ground, some cracked. Really is unfortunate.
Point of order.
So every
Point of
dime
order,
you
Councilor
spend-
Kwasinski, what's your question? You're deliberating.
Please talk to the chair.
Well, okay. What can you just get to the question?
Get to the
What I'm deliberating is I don't see how you could possibly cut that any further in terms of maintenance. of the
Councilor
cemetery.
Kwasinski, you cannot deliberate. You can't deliberate. You can't give your opinion. That's a violation of open meeting law. We have a quorum. You can ask a question, but
As a
that's it.
citizen, I can be happy that he's
But
doing
you are a city councilor in a quorum. You cannot give your opinion.
apologize.
I have a question too. What's the dedicated time frame as you walk through that cemetery? All the markers for ground, predominantly military, they're being eaten up by the ground consistently. What's the dedication of your staff to clean those? I had a plot and I sold it back to the city because I couldn't have a stone where I wanted it towards the front because you have a limitation on stones. And just looking at those gravestones of those soldiers and those people who passed was disgusting.
We don't own the stones. Those are the families. Families buy the stones. Our obligation is to mow and upkeep of the cemetery. It's groups of veterans and volunteers.
I'm not talking about the stones. I'm talking about the grass that's eating, just covering the stones.
So a couple of years ago, we had a volunteer program through the high school that came over and started, the ones on the front side started bringing those up. But when you there's not a lot of time for those guys to do that.
Have you contacted UMass, ROTC, any of the ROTC people in the area?
Yeah, that's more for the veterans. That's why I worked with Mike over there to talk to him about that, about, how we can partner and he had someone that was going to do it, and they never showed up. Not one day, to work on that project. So it's something we're aware of, for sure.
Because when I sold back my stone, the individual informed me that they hired somebody to just clean those and clear that area and clean around those stones, around those markers. And when I went through again, hadn't been done.
Yeah, we hired a senior tax work credit person as well. And that didn't really work out either. So it wasn't for a lack of effort through the years for sure.
It wasn't, but you know, it's just that it's.
If you have like I said,
Somebody walks through there, then you got.
yeah, we're open to any and all ideas regarding that for sure.
Thank you. Sir, can I just ask your name for the record?
Like your,
Thank you.
110 Line Street.
Okay. Julie Slavitt, I see your hand.
Is this the time to ask about cemetery revenue?
Yes.
Okay, so, the cemeteries are beautiful, and, very well maintained. I think that the city has done an incredible job taking care of those cemeteries, and I do, agree the stones are family responsibility, and that's a problem. I mean, cemetery maintenance is a problem everywhere, like across the country in cities and small places as well. So maintaining that cemetery and getting other folks to help with stones is something that is worth looking into. I looked at I can't believe I did this, but I looked at the cemetery revenues because I've actually been looking at cemetery plots, and I'll tell you, they're not inexpensive. And I think that maybe looking at the fees in terms of the cost of plots is something that could happen in the next year. I know it's important because it's a public cemetery, for a community, but I think that those fees could be raised.
Just respond to that, Treasurer.
So yes, we're affordable because it's only available to residents for our city cemeteries. But to gain more revenue, we're in a project now of adding 2 additional cremation lots that will be completed probably by June 30th. And if you go through the years, some years you'll see a spike in revenues, and that's because when people find out that we're have availability again, people buy, and half of that goes into the city coffers, half of it goes to perpetual care. The other thing is we are going to, once that project's done, we're going to be looking at doing an further expansion in the cemetery down the furthest end towards Williston Ave. We've already expanded into a little bit of that area, and we'll be having more space available there for city folks to purchase and have a lasting view of the pond.
Okay. Thank you.
Great. Any other questions on cemetery budget? Okay. Let's move on.
Main Street, still 1111.
Yeah, let's talk to Main Street Cemetery.
Main Street, I kind of touched upon. It says clerical, but it's actually 2 maintenance workers. And then Sam is also the clerk for Main Street Cemetery to sell lots, to track down what little information was left to us, and to work with families. So that's basically 3 employees out of that little pot of money trying to keep Main Street moving along. And purchase of services is, expenses and repairs for any equipment that's needed over there. And then the bad would just reduce some of those hours and reduce some of the repair maintenance costs.
So just for understanding, the part-time regular, if that's a maintenance worker for Brookside, are these the same people? Are they the same person or same people?
You on Brookside?
Well, between the two.
So yeah, so the folks that work part-time regular at Brookside is the part-time regular at the same. Yeah, that was the to help ease the pain of my cemetery maintenance staff taking on another cemetery. There were a few hours available for them to increase their Because like I said, they're
Yep.
35 hours and 30 hours, and they're not 40 hours, even with the Main Street hours.
So make sure I understood that. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Well, yeah, any questions about Main Street Cemetery? Any questions online? Fairly self-explanatory. Okay. So that's, it's now remind me again what the other things are. Is the tree warden, is that?
Not us.
Not
No,
you.
that's all, that's DPW now.
Okay.
I'm done with my section, so
You're
I
done with your
really,
sections.
I really appreciate you, working with me this evening and letting you go first.
Okay. Yeah, let's do building inspection.
So, so you started off by asking John about original budget, reduced budget, drastic reductions. So I'll just start with the process of constructing an FY27 budget. When it started, before there was any awareness or information around there being any issues, we were asked to put together a level service budget. I believe at that point didn't increase anything. I went up by $500. That was for weights and measures to, because we're expecting Easthampton, some of those businesses, if they have scales, for instance. So anyway, my budget for last year, for instance, for FY26 has come in, I guess, most recent expense control report shows it coming in the month left still in the fiscal year of landing at about 78.53% right now. So everything, nothing went over, well within budget as it was put together. So there was a little room for reduction. First round of saying, well, we tightened things up. I was asked to reduce it by $20,000. Found savings of up to almost 23,000. I think it's 22,000 some change. Where are the savings? So where I have it was, and I had a question about that too. I mean, there were a lot of questions. There's only two people in my department. There's me and there's my administrative assistant.
Sure.
A new hire, by the way. So it was really kind of disconcerting to learn that this is all happening right at a time that they were hired, given their notice to leave a job that they already had, and then finding out that they could be losing 2 hours a week. So to that end, I was offering a drastic reduction to reduce my hours to maintain their hours. However, my understanding is that that's not possible because that's a union position. So, so I don't really know where I'd submitted a drastic budget kind of, if the override does not pass, comes in, and I should go back. When I was first hired here, the position for, the salary for my position was 92,000 and something. I came in voluntarily at 32 hours a week. That reduced it to 88,000 something. So right away, my presence here brought a savings in the department. I cut things out of the original budget. They were kind of a little heavy on the part-time. It was people that fill in when I'm on vacation, for instance, and they're not salaried. They get paid per inspection. So didn't use that all up yet because I haven't gone on a vacation for over a year. So there's some room in my budget to help the city out, but, said we only have two. There's this man, there's my, administrative assistant. There's not really any room to reduce salaries. I would not take any more. I'm not going to take a hit on that, especially now knowing that my assistant is subject to a 2-hour a week cut. And I just want to go over, I mean, I remember this happened at the end of was it last year, and there was outrage over having 8 employees cut 2 hours. I was hearing they're the bottom paid employees. They should be coming off the top, people who are paid more. So I was offering to do that, but you can't do that apparently to save those positions under this budget proposal so far. So I would really like to see that happen if possible, but I know I'm not here for that. But you expressed some outrage over some things. These are my concerns watching this from where I sit. I have proposed to cut my hours by 4 hours a week. Early on during this administration, there was I had proposed hiring a very part-time local inspector, part-time to the point where there are no benefits or anything, to give a young person an opportunity to get into this field and be trained. That kind of didn't pan out. And the hours that I was going to reduce would have been covered by their activity. Under the drastic, if the override doesn't pass budget, I was proposing to reduce my hours by 4 hours a week. But again, I was hoping, that would be before I learned that the administrative assistant was going to be cut. Now, if they maintain their hours, and the new hire is quite good. She's doing very well so far. 3rd week, really sharp. A really sharp person in that position, I think it's possible to reduce my hours. Can't reduce all of our hours and expect to have the same services. The building department, by the way, brings in a sizable chunk of money to the town. It's fee-based service, so it's not. My goal is to not have the taxpayers subsidize the operations of an office that caters to people who are making money from what they're doing. So it's a fee-based service. There is large excess over the building department operations that went back to the general revenue that's used by the city. So, and I invited through what were probably 2 or 3 budget discussion sessions. Whatever the town wants to do to try to reduce the budget in the building department, go for it. And the question I asked was, this is kind of an up and down thing, building is cyclical. So right now, we got a late start this year for permits because it was so cold. It was kind of slow. As soon as it got warm, it started popping. And now we do about, I think last year was 1,500 permits. I think we're going to surpass that this year. A lot of smaller projects are happening. So that means inspections, that means time in the field. So again, if I cut my hours, that means the person in the department has to maintain the office hours, keep up with all of the phone calls, communications, because I'll be there less time to do some of that work. And I don't know if it'll work out. So I was told, well, if we run short of money, we'll find it somewhere. Well, I think that's part of the problem as it goes. If you don't have the money in your department budgets by the end of the year, and then you go looking around for money somewhere else in the town, I don't think that's such a good idea. And that's why I construct my budget. So I would rather see excess in my line items at the end of the year than shortfalls. Yeah. And trying to find how to make that up.
Mayor, do you want to respond to any of that?
Well, I think, this is something that's been brought up by a few departments looking at, trying to take department heads giving some of their salary to employees that are in the union. We're currently in negotiations with the union. That is not something that would be able to be done across the board. So if you can't do it for everybody, then it's something that, I think the union is not going to agree to. So while I appreciate the sentiment and the idea, and I wish that we had the flexibility to do things like that, because of the constraints that we're operating within with the union, that's not a possibility at this point.
I understand that, but that's,
I don't know if you wanted to finish your thought. I was just letting you know I had a question.
I started a thought and then I realized it wasn't a fully formed thought. So why don't you go with yours?
Yeah, so I just have so for the, obviously we're talking about the yes override. My understanding was that department heads and positions, same for yes override, but I'm seeing a reduction here. And so that seems like an error that needs to be corrected. Because these hours are reduced in the yes override, but in other budgets, they're not reduced. So I think that's an error.
Somebody want to
Yeah,
respond?
so I can speak to that. So that was actually, if I'm remembering correctly, that was David volunteered.
No, I understand. He just said he volunteered, but I also heard him say that he didn't understand that. So that seems like he volunteered that, not knowing that a yes override meant something different for other departments.
Yeah, I mean, that was something that when we discussed at the meeting, that was volunteered. And we, since we are with a yes override, we're still looking to make cuts because that yes override doesn't get us to where we are. And if a department head volunteers to reduce their hours, but there was no stipulations on that when we had that discussion. But that was something that was discussed at the department level that we had agreed to.
That doesn't seem fair. So
It was voluntary.
I understand it was voluntary, but the problem here also is that you generate a lot of revenue for the city. So now we're taking away hours again from an office that generates revenue. So that's, to me, seems really problematic. So I'm just flagging that, just saying that. Also, it doesn't seem fair then that the clerical is also losing hours, even though he may have volunteered his hours, but I didn't hear that. Did that person also volunteer their hours to cut hours?
That's a union position.
I can speak to the discrepancy between those two. She was hired during the budget processing. So the yes override has a placeholder at a certain level. She ended up being hired at a higher level during the when we were working on the no override. Once we had those figures, they were fixed in the no override. So we do have to go back and correct it in the yes override.
Okay, so that needs to be corrected.
I do apologize for that.
No. I'm trying to understand. So you said a lot, and so I'm just trying to understand it. So I apologize. So the building inspector part-time, that's for when you're away. This person
Well,
comes in.
part-time, so the one line, and there was some misunderstanding about that when I first started here. The lines were how funds were attributed. So part-time, we have a part-time gas plumbing inspector,
Yep.
part-time wiring inspector. So when I started here in this position, and then there is the there's a line item. This printed really small. I can't see it. You're seeing it better than I am. So there's a line item for $3,000 for inspectors.
Temporary positions regular.
Yes. So those are two. We have Wally Merrick and Todd. I always get his last name wrong, so I'm not going to say it. But I have two alternate inspectors for when I'm away. They get paid by the inspection, $50 per inspection.
Mm-hmm.
So that line item has pretty much stayed pretty solid right now because even though there have been invoices submitted by them to the department, they've been paid out. And so I was not understanding why that line was not reduced.
Are you talking about the 16,900?
I'm
trying to understand that number. Nice.
Yeah, that would be
Because it says original is 3,000, but the actual to date is almost $17,000. So I'm a bit confused about that.
Okay,
it's
building
3,000.
inspection. So if you go down to line 5118, that's
I don't know what that means.
building department part-time. So that budget for that fell far short on prior budgets. I corrected that by increasing it to what it should have been so that we didn't have a shortfall in that line item. These are the gas, plumbing, and wiring inspectors. They're part-time. They don't have a spot in the office, no desk, no location. They work strictly in the field. They go out and do inspections. That's what they do. They log them. They issue permits from using the remote electronic permitting system. And so the temporary positions regular, if you see the line from actual to FY 2024, that's what I was referring to, how there were funds misapplied or attributed to that particular line item.
We're talking about the 44,000.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And so
should that have been in building inspection part-time? Is that?
Yes,
Okay.
Exactly.
Thank you. All right. It's all clicking.
So we finally that's all straightened out now in the budget for that I submitted for FY 27, the initial. So we're all on track on that. So and as I said, according to the latest, well, any more questions on that?
No, I just was trying to understand how we went from these large numbers to 3,000.
Yeah, no, that's but it was something that was just having positions misattributed to line items and stuff.
Yeah, and the auditor just confirmed that as well. So
and then building department also has weights and measures in the department. So there's a line for weights and measures. That's
inspection, professional and technical services.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And you want so, and that, again, that's something that in the initial FY 27 budget that I submitted, I had increased the amount, and then for the then subsequent revisions, just reduce that again. And we'll just see how that falls. Again, that's one of those things that can be a little bit more, a little bit less. It's so like to keep it in there and so that I know it's covered. Well, we have to pay the bill anyway. It doesn't much matter. So some of the, I mean, there are some ways to save on some of the per diem inspections. I recently started talking to solar installation companies, saying that, and instead of going out physically for a rough rooftop solar inspection, I would accept photographs for that. The wiring inspector's been doing that for a while. Reasoning that that's the reason that can work now is that we had a code cycle change where originally rooftop solar systems did not require setbacks and aisles and such for fire access. It was in the International Residential Code, but it was mended out because the former governor, I think Patrick, maybe it went back that far, decided that we wanted to maximize solar on the roof. And so for residential, if you eliminate the aisles and setbacks, more panels, more generation. This time it was not amended out. And so there are, took a while for some of the solar companies to catch up on that. So going out to do rough inspections and catching mistakes prior to a finished job was essential because they weren't doing the setbacks or they were running surface mount conduit within the zones, and you're going, no, you can't do that. So, but that's been a couple of years now, and they're all pretty much on top of it. So it can reduce, especially for any per inspection for if I'm away or if I call in an alternate. They don't need to do that. So it saves, trying to save wherever we can. And that's when I go on vacation, which I hope to do sometime soon. And every time I've gone on vacation, not only here, but every municipality I've worked in, I still continue to review applications, issue permits, so there's no expense around that. So, and my proposal to reduce my hours, that was voluntary, as the mayor said. That was just something because, I live here. I'm a resident in Easthampton. I know we have a problem. Make it work. It's a voluntary reduction. But again, that came with me hoping that then clerk would not have reduced hours.
Just the in-state travel, is that using your vehicle to drive around the city?
Travel, that
or
was, so for the FY26 budget, which is the first one I put together, travel was in there. And I don't like to travel for trainings. It's just for trainings and such. So the annual seminar in Amherst, 3 days, that's all I need every year. So I don't need travel expenses.
Yep, I'm just trying to understand. Thank you.
That'll make sense.
Mhm.
I'll just say, situation that we're describing, like, I think I'm completely hearing what you're saying, Mayor, that like ultimately that sort of thing is not something we can just do by fiat. There needs to be an understanding with the unions. I would hope that the unions would sort of just hear that proposed, like that general idea of a proposal out, because I think that what's happening here is that you have a department head who's offering to take a hit to help an employee, and I don't know why a union. I mean, I understand that's not something that can be done across the board, but I do, as a union member, I do understand why that could potentially be a problem for a union, but I also just think that just given the situation and, I'm saying this to you, but obviously it's not your call, but if there was some way that an arrangement could be made there where everyone just sort of looks at the reality of the situation, I think that would be nice, but I understand that's ultimately not any of our calls, but I hear what you're saying, and I think it's coming from an admirable place, so.
I would just add to that, I appreciate that, and I appreciate the sentiment. And there are other department heads that had offered that as well.
Okay. So maybe that's something we can talk about and find a way to get creative. Okay. And if that's something that, the other thing I would just note is that if that's something that we come to some sort of understanding about post-budget, an intra-departmental transfer does not require council approval, so perhaps there's a way we can, figure something out. But in the meantime, yeah. So, okay. Any questions? I'm sorry, that was very informative, but there was there's a lot of information there. We haven't specifically gone over the no override scenario. But you've touched on it in principle. The idea would be that the big thing would be a reduction in the hours of the part-time position. Are there other reductions in the no override scenario that you want to walk us through?
Well, not really. I think I went through, so frankly, quite honestly, there were, starting out, there was just the normal, okay, it's budget time. We need to put together budgets, for fiscal 27. As I said, as far as I can recall from looking at this, the only increase I had was for weights and measures or maybe some things. So we were asked to do a level funded civil service budget. So second one, I didn't count all the zeros when they were asking for says 20,000. I thought it said 2,000. I was trying to figure out a how this works? If you go, is it just a percentage across the board, or how it was arrived at that the building department, well, the 2,000, that was easy, you know? And then I realized, well, they're asking for 20,000. Well, that's the part I don't know how that works across all the budgets. I thought our budget was pretty tight already. I mean, I don't want to have some things in here for books. That's really just I don't buy code books. It's a subscription, $600 a year for online code, something called Upcode.
Right.
It's really a smart way to do it because it updates automatically all the time.
Yeah.
So there are some things that may look like they don't need to be there. Trainings, I don't really think it's fair that I should give up on trainings. It's pretty light already. Just one seminar a year.
Mm-hmm.
Other municipalities, I've worked in others, so I know the expectation is much higher than that. There are travel expenses. There are people who go to the other side of the state for trainings.
I think it's fair to say that given the particular constant changing nature of your job and the revenue implications, that we should probably not touch that $542. That's my opinion anyway, but it doesn't look like we did. So, okay. So yeah. All right. Any other questions about the building department budget?
Mike heard one time last year, what is the standard fee for solar? Have you thought of increasing?
And so that's the other thing I failed to mention. When I started here, within a couple months, reworked the fee schedule for the building department. It was some lack of capturing a lot of things. There was kind of inequities. And I had constructed fee schedules for South Hadley and also East Longmeadow to bring them more in line with surrounding communities. So pretty much of a standard is for commercial. It's easy way to think of it is 1% of the estimated value of the work. So commercial is 1%, residential is 3/4 of 1% of the estimated value of the work.
Based on the dollars that you're getting rebated, your money, you would think you could raise your fees.
We
And then that
could.
be line item directly to your department.
Well, no, it would
Yeah.
just go to the city.
Not go to the general fund.
No, it would, all of the fees go to the general.
Yeah, so
At least
that
I
is a
know-
model that you're thinking of is actually practiced by some building departments and where they keep it all in a department because you can have a good year and a bad year. So you can kind of construct a budget, have things happening like a couple years ago, cost of building materials skyrocketed, all kinds of stuff, buildings slowed down, fewer applications. Now, thing is that people do it, they want to do what they want to do. So they're shell shocked for a little while and then they just go like, well, nothing's going to change. So then they start, doing additions or makeovers in their house and stuff. So, permitting right now is pretty up again. So it's pretty good for right now. But no, what you're saying does make sense in some places. I believe Granby treated their department as an enterprise fund, more or less. And they would end up at the end of the year with, that I did a study on it, $600,000 in excess.
I'm just going to jump in real quick.
Sure.
This is very interesting and something that we could definitely have a longer conversation about enterprise funds and things like that. Just because of the amount of things that we have, I just kind of want to focus on the line items that are within the budget.
Okay, well, can I just say one thing just to close that out?
Sure.
Yeah. One thing you could raise the fees. You can raise fees anytime you want. I don't know if it's a good idea because people would be a little upset. We try to create an even experience for contractors throughout the valley. And that was my goal for bringing these more in line and things that are more easily understood. But if it comes down to it and you want the department to raise fees, that's okay with me.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments on the building department budget? All right.
Done? Okay. Thank you.
Want to do Health Department. What?
Yes, so, personally, I just want to say I apologize. I'm slightly frustrated. I know all departments are in the same boat, but the health department is looking at a 36% reduction from fiscal year 2026 to fiscal year 2027, which would be equivalent to $100,000.
That's in the case of of the no override.
That's in either case right now. We have 2 staff positions that haven't been able to be filled due to the hiring freeze since last fiscal year. I think, is my understanding, even if we do get the override, there still has to be cuts, and those positions may not be filled or aren't guaranteed to be filled.
Here, would you like to?
I think, as we look at the financial picture, those are things that we would like to try to fill. But it's gonna have to, make sense within the financial picture. The intent would be to try to fill those.
Okay. So let's go over with the override budget first, and then we'll talk through the no override budget.
Okay. So with the override budget, my salary would stay the same. 10% of it would be supplemented by the opioid fund. The clerical salary would get a step increase, and then both health inspectors would remain at their current 34-hour work week and get their union increase.
Okay.
And then the difference, if the override doesn't go through, would just be the reduction of the union workers from 34 hours to 32 hours. And then in our personnel expenses, we would remove $1,000 from our education and training. We would remove $50 from office supplies, $100 from our medical supplies, $750 from our outreach, $450 from our uniform and clothing allowance, which our uniform and clothing allowance is very important. Police, fire, and health department are the departments that show up at residents' houses unannounced and unexpected. And our in-state travel will go from $400 to $100. And then our dues and memberships would also reduce $50.
Would that be, it's a tiny expense, but would there be like a membership that gets dropped or something?
Yes.
Okay. Counselors, questions?
So I can better understand the role of these 2 positions, can you help me understand what they do?
Yeah, of course. I actually have job descriptions if you'd like. So the easiest way to explain it is they're the outreach part of the health department. The health department has inspectional services, and then it has the community outreach. Inspectional services are housing inspections, food inspections, tanning inspections. Those are all state mandated, they're state required. These work, the nurse and the outreach worker would be our community outreach. They are the face of the health department. They're engaging with the community. They're developing relationships with services. They're assisting the underserved residents of Easthampton. If you go through what they do, vaccination clinics for the nurse, homebound vaccinations for the Easthampton residents that aren't mobile, disease tracking, foodborne illness investigations, presentations at the Council on Aging. And then the outreach worker assists residents with housing needs, food access, healthcare navigation, which is all rising, as we all know. So it's super critical that we have these positions in place because they directly assist the underserved residents in Easthampton. And without these in place, I don't think the health department can do their mission of protecting the health of the residents of Easthampton effectively. We can do the state minimum and mandated requirements, but without these outreach positions, I think it's a huge disservice to the already underserved residents of Easthampton.
And what I think I'm hearing you say, just to make sure that there's that these were two positions that were open at the point that the hiring freeze hit.
Correct. July 1, 2026, both these positions were open. The community outreach worker was open due to them having to leave their job due to the hours reduction. And it hasn't been replaced yet.
Okay. I hope that's something, I mean, I hope that we can get to a place where we can either do something about that or we can find some other revenue stream for it or something, because that's obviously I hear what you're saying.
Comment, I hear in your voice the struggle with this. So I just want to acknowledge that. Obviously, you take this very seriously. You recognize that there is a vulnerable population within the community, seniors, low income, etc., who are currently seeking services that they desperately need. So I just want to acknowledge that I hear that's a huge struggle for you.
I mean, and that being said, we have amazing Council on Aging workers, amazing veteran agents, but I think there are some of Easthampton residents that aren't being served adequately.
Thank you. Anything before we? Okay, so yeah, I feel like you sort of jumped into talking about what the cuts would be with the override. So I feel pretty. Councilor Schmidt, do you have a question?
Thank you. Yeah. Just because we've sort of heard a little bit about this from some other departments that are kind of revenue generating departments. And so I just wanted to kind of create an opportunity, if you don't mind, to speak about the revenue that your department does bring in through inspections that of course just funnels into the general fund.
Of course. So the goal, my personal goal is for our inspectors to bring in more revenue than they cost the city. Currently, as of today, for fiscal year 26, we've generated $68,645 in permitting fees, fines, non-compliance fees, inspection fees. And then that was with us raising our fee schedule starting July 1, 2026 to be more in line with our neighboring communities. And I think there's still more room for growth from a fee perspective for the health department. And just that the 68,000 that we've done so far this year was with only one tobacco violation. So it's good news.
Yeah. How do you think, I know this is not your top priority, but since we are at finance, like how the cuts that we're talking about making if the override does not pass do you anticipate that having an impact on the fees, like the amount of inspections that you're going to be able to do?
Do I anticipate having an impact on the fees?
Well, or like on the number of inspections, I suppose.
Yes, 100%. So this currently, as of today, the inspection department has done 519 inspections 506 inspections, starting in January 1st. All of last year, we did 519 inspections. All of 2024, we did 333 inspections. All of 2023, we did 357 inspections. If they're gonna get cut 4 hours, so 8 hours every 2 weeks, I 100% see there will be a reduction in inspections.
2 hours. 2 hours per person.
Sorry, yeah. So 4 hours total from the inspection department.
Right. Okay. That is another thing that's good to know. Any further questions, councilors? Any members of the public have any questions about this, Kathy?
Kathy Wizinski, Overlook Drive. I have a couple questions, and one of them is actually probably across departments. But is there a mechanism for municipalities to participate in the state's apprenticeship program? Because they'll pay 50% of the salary. I've used it in the private sector. I've seen it used in the private sector with some programs I've worked in. So that's just a question. I don't know. I've not seen that in the state website, but just curious.
I think it's something worth looking into. I've never seen that outside of the trades, but
They do have health and they do have technology and options.
Sure,
So,
let's look
just
into it. It's a good
curiosity.
idea. Let's look into it.
And
I don't know.
for the health department, are the nurses and social workers insurance billable? There's a lot of like the access navigation, the medical navigation, and all of that stuff is billable under insurance. So just wondering if it's another revenue generating stream to help fund those positions.
Yes, it could be. For us, it's not, for multiple reasons. The main one is just because we want to switch the the social worker that we had in the past to more of an outreach worker that assists with obtaining resources. We don't want the city to be the resource for the individual. It would just be, I think some issues as the goal would be to connect them to resources, not be the resource for the person. And then for nursing, I know they can use health insurance for vaccinations. Currently, Northampton handles our vaccinations. We don't have the equipment or the ability to store vaccinations in our health department. So by them handling all the vaccines and pretty much running that for us, all the fees from our Easthampton residents that get vaccinated, all their insurance fees go straight to Northampton. So we do miss out on that revenue stream. I know the previous health director was in discussions about bringing that back to Easthampton. I think the board of health was slightly against it due to the difficulty of Easthampton maintaining the vaccinations.
Councilor Devon?
There's a outreach, well, not really outreach, in the police department, Emma, in her role, does she ever collaborate with you in any way if there's a serious situation with a resident that's in need of service or anything like that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes. Emma Ashley from the Council on Aging, the veteran agent. Yeah. As Mayor Jerky suggested, we all form a group together to put all of our resources together, and that's been a huge help.
Mm-hmm. Great. So I had one last question. I know that the behavioral health access agencies are supposed to be doing medical navigation and access navigation. Have we partnered with any of them to assist with some of the shortfall?
In regards to what? Like what behavioral health places?
Well, I know BHN, CHD, they're both supposed to be behavioral health access points, but they're also supposed to do medical integration. And I know like they're embedded in like Holyoke Medical Center and Holyoke Hospital and some of the school districts as well. So I'm just wondering if partnering with one of the access programs might benefit the shortfall.
Yeah, we don't currently. I think that's something I'll definitely look into. I think that's an awesome idea.
Chair, can I just mention something? So I did, I had a meeting scheduled with CHD today to talk about different opportunities. So unfortunately, the representative wasn't able to make it, so I have a meeting next week. So that's one of the things that we're talking about.
BHN too. They're both large.
I don't have a meeting with them yet, but.
Get them all. There's a whole lot of those 3-letter acronym agencies around here.
And BHN's the biggest.
Okay. Any questions from the community? Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Could you just give your name and?
Rosalind Helpin, 64 South Street, Unit 3. Just to clarify for me, the outreach worker at the Council on Aging, is she under the health department or another department?
She is specifically under the Council on Aging department. However, with there not being currently a outreach worker in the department, she's taken on roles outside of those over the age 55, as well as the police department picking up the slack for the health department not having a outreach worker.
Okay, because I hear her being praised tremendously.
She is amazing, and I can't say enough good things about her.
And I believe her hours would be cut. So you're taking it from 2 places.
Yeah, but like Ashley at the Council on Aging, I can't say enough good things about. If you ever need assistance with rent or obtaining healthcare or SNAP benefits, she's the person to go to, and she's excellent. I can't say enough good things about Ashley.
Thank you. But I also hear what you're saying is the need is increasing, and that's a lot to put on one person, which is why this position in the health department is equally important.
We had a full-time social worker in 2024. They were working 40 hours a week. They couldn't keep up with the need and they were amazing, and they couldn't keep up with the need of the residents. So I think the need's only going to grow with housing insecurity, food insecurity, healthcare, health insurance. I'm looking at it with my health department goggles, because that's all I use. But I think it's super important that we get this position in place.
Thank you for advocating for your department. Is there any other questions from the public? Anyone online? I'm trying to figure out. We'll let you know if you have further questions.
Of course, thank you.
Okay, I've been trying to stick by my standard of saying that I'm going to prioritize people in the room. And so I believe next up, we should probably do the library. And this is going to obviously, we're going to lose our clerk for a minute.
Let me get that up and ready here for you, so that you can just click between things.
I'm sit with you guys for a minute.
By all means.
And I don't know if you received the packet that I sent you this afternoon.
I was in the office
I
where I'm
know,
not
yeah,
supposed to
I know.
look at my stuff, and then I drove here, so.
Right. I can, yeah, the reason that I want to share that, and maybe we can at least enter it into the record of this meeting, I'm not sure how that works,
Sure.
is because, as you know, counselors, but maybe the public doesn't know, so I'm just going to speak really briefly to this. The library doesn't function like other city departments because we are not a city department. We're a private nonprofit that contracts with the city to provide the services, library services for the city of Easthampton. And so our budget looks weird. You don't see line items because our board does not actually vote on our full budget until after the city budget is passed. I did provide to council, after meeting with my finance committee this afternoon, our best estimates of a budget and a no budget. But what you see here is really just 2 numbers. So I'll start with those. And I'm happy to share with both anyone in council and any member of the public, both our line item budgets as they will be. And, but just so you know, they are not fully funded by these numbers, because these numbers, our city appropriation represents just under half of our operating budget at this time.
Right. And I also understand that, like, one of the most confusing things in my experience
Just gonna get my papers. Sorry, keep
nice.
speaking.
With government finances, that often you have money coming from various sources and that money is not 100% like earmarked. So like, it's not like you could spend the city money on this specific one thing and then the other money on this specific one thing. It's just kind of, this is your operating budget. So I guess and this, by the way, this is the very similar thing to how we deal with the schools, where it's sort of like they set up a whole thing, we send them an appropriation. Okay, so I guess what I could use some help with is trying to understand what I basically see is that if we get the override, we'd be looking to spend $290,000, which would be about $5,500 less than we spent last year.
Correct.
In an appropriation. So it's going to be a reduction one way or another.
Yeah, basically the city appropriation this year is with or without an override, a significant cut, because it goes not only below fiscal year 2026, but it interrupts the momentum of a long-standing or a standing of a few years goal that city council and the mayor has had to increase our city appropriation by a fairly significant amount yearly to bring us up to a more reasonable parity with similar libraries in the state. And so what it represents really with either scenario is a pretty significant interruption in momentum. The number with the no override budget that you see is the bare legal minimum that the city appropriation has to meet in order to maintain our state certification. And I'm very glad that we haven't gone below that, because that is actually catastrophic. That would mean we lose $40,000 to $50,000 in state aid funds, any eligibility to apply for grants, and any reciprocity with our entire consortium, both region-wide and statewide. So that is not what is going to happen. And we are to the penny making that not happen, which is where we were 5 years ago and is not a wise place to be. So it's the struggle budget.
Yeah.
So that's what it is. Okay. So even again, the differential between the override passing and the override not passing comes to just under $14,000 for us. It's not an astonishing amount of money given our total budget. It helps, but I feel my understanding is that if the override doesn't pass, two things will happen. One is that we will be way at the end of the line for any kind of recovery, given the catastrophic cuts that will happen across the city. And simultaneously, we'll be facing the results of what essentially amounts to an unfunded mandate of many other city services being cut and people coming to us to provide those services with reduced resources.
Can you give some examples of what you can see?
I absolutely can, yeah. Right now, we're in a partnership that was recently announced with City IT, with the Veterans Agents, with the Council on Aging, and with Easthampton Media. It's called the Go Digital Initiative, and it's a grant that was obtained by the city, but is being executed by us and various other, city services that I just mentioned, to basically provide digital equity resources, which include classes, which include tech help at various senior housing locations across the area, and at the library, and at eMedia, and at the Council on Aging, and the free distribution of about 150 laptops and Chromebooks across the board as well. So this is a hugely amazing program that we're able to share these things with folks. We could not possibly administrate or operate it with staff reductions or with the cuts at our partner agencies as well. So it's going to be the kind of thing that we couldn't do again. That's a good example, but also people are coming in daily looking for the kind of things, I think the health department just mentioned this very well. There are these things that are shared across departments in terms of connecting people to resources, in terms of people having a place to be when it is warm, cold, or just a place to walk in and have access to a space to be. Recreational programming is something we provide a huge amount of. Again, we'll be doing less of it, and also ultimately it could lead to hours cuts. We have a limited amount of hours we can cut, again, before it affects our state certification. So it's a priority not to do that, but it will mean longer wait times, fewer staff on duty at any given time, which is what is exactly going to happen. So currently in either scenario, we're losing about 30 hours, 20 to 30 hours of staff time by attrition. I have a staff member who's retiring who won't be replaced. And that will mean that I do some more desk time. Many of my other, sort of admin staff do some more desk time. And it will mean that there are fewer people again on staff at any time, which could impact staff safety, but more impacts response time for folks coming in and our ability to do programming and to do the planning that allows. So I think what it comes down to is because our revenues are a little more flexible, because we get a large amount of, because a large amount of our current funding, somewhat unsustainably, comes from our endowment. We're going to make it through this year. We don't know what next year will look like, because the other thing that's happening, as I think everyone knows, is that we have added a building to our establishment. We are currently using this building for a massive increase in programming, which is wonderful. And it allows us to offer, meeting space for residents, for local nonprofits, I have in here, I'll just find this for you. We host about 400 plus public and private events annually. And I don't mean private events like people's birthday parties. I mean like meetings for various city groups and stuff. Currently, we don't do any rentals, which is something that we're looking into. And again, that's the revenue increase we can look at. We haven't done it partly for equity purposes and partly for staffing purposes.
Right.
So it's the first year of this building. We're getting used to it. But what we're really experiencing, in addition to an interruption in services, is we're having an interruption in momentum. We're at a kind of a crucial point of, we are reaching out to large funders. We're starting a capital campaign. We're trying to basically take the next steps forward in using this building gift we've been given and making a library that's actually accessible and available and meets the needs that Easthampton has. And quite frankly, we may be stalled. And we're going to find out what that means for us. So that's what we're really talking about more than almost anything else, is a momentum interruption. But, and I can speak again to any specific line item, any specific, I'm happy to share that with any resident. And, again, it's a little bit different just because we don't, we do this in a lump sum. But we're committed to using the resources that are available to us and every collaboration we can have so that we can continue offering the services that we do. I mean, that's our goal. And, I had one resident come to me, and I'll just give you one anecdote because I do stories. But I had one resident come to me who is a senior on a fixed income. And this person said to me, look, I am going to vote for the override because I want to continue to support city service. I will go to fewer concerts next year, and I will have less recreation and less pleasure in my life, basically. And I said to her, my immediate response to her was, okay, who do we book? What can the library do as a cultural institution to make sure that the residents of Easthampton have a vibrant cultural experience when they don't have a lot of cash on hand? That is our job in many ways. A connection to resources, a connection to information, a safe place to be, support for children and families, and adults and seniors and everyone else who's walking in the door, but also respite, support, and delight. Essentially, we're a cultural institution. That's part of what we do. So I want to sorry, I'm like moving my papers around, but I think the other things that are at risk for us significantly, again, parallel to the health department, is outreach. The more I have to staff the building, the less I can do home delivery, the less I can do being present at various local events that we're asked to be present at. The less I can interact with the schools, the less I say I, but we. Those are the things that really get hit first. And we don't like those to get hit because we like to do them.
Right.
So yeah, I also brought, because I know the subject of FTEs has been a big one. I just brought a list of our current FTEs. We've pretty much stayed put. We went from about 7.5 in 2024 to 7.9 this year. We're gonna go back to about 7.5. I have about 14 people working for me. It's about 7.5 FTEs, so you can have that chart as well. But I know that's been something that came up regularly. And again, we're not on the city payroll, but we are relevant.
See, this is exactly what I think these things should look like. This is
So you can
great.
thank Chuck McCullough, who
Thanks,
with
Chuck.
our beautiful Daniel here, who is the chair of our finance committee, put together a beautiful, beautiful budget document. So
Fantastic.
they do beautiful long range planning around there.
Okay. Just gonna send this inspiration piece as you guys figure this all out. Okay. Councilor Denham, do you have any questions?
I don't have a question, just comments. Obviously, I know this is incredibly challenging and difficult for the library. And I want to express again that much the same way that the health department and Council on Aging and the veterans agents, you're obviously providing a very needed resource, oftentimes to vulnerable individuals in the community who are looking for an outlet, resource, community. And I can't overstate the importance and value that you offer to the city. And obviously I know the people who are here to support, right, understand that. And I hope you know that you are valued.
Yeah, I think, we're lucky enough to be so front facing that we really do see that value and we feel that appreciation. And I just want to comment on the partnerships again, also. We're not a city department, but being treated like one has really helped us increase our partnerships. We work so well with the Council on Aging and with the Veterans Agent and with City IT, and we're open. We've worked with the health department also when the public health nurse was in her position. We did great work with her as well. We each kind of have our lane, and I think we do it best. But the collaborations have been excellent, and we want to continue those. And, our building also has been a huge boon to the Council on Aging because they don't have enough space either. We've been able to share that space in a way that's been really cool. We were able to do a memory cafe program this spring that was a really big hit and was really exciting to pilot.
It's great.
With Ashley, just to say, who's not here, but who is the outreach worker for the Council on Aging.
Yes.
And I had a chance to meet her. She is excellent.
Okay. Any community questions, comments about the library?
Yeah,
I
know. So bark at me if you think I'm gonna violate anything. I just want to say that I want to echo what you said.
You're echoing, you're giving an opinion.
I'm echoing. Okay, never mind.
Question.
Never mind. I have no
We know you appreciate us, Dan.
I appreciate it. It's one of the last free places that you can go and nobody asks.
Yeah, I think
That's it.
to speak to that third space, that is what we do. We are open. You can walk in. You can access us. There are no barriers to access, and we work very hard to make that possible. We're not a business. We are spending money to get something else that is not money.
Anyone online? Oh, of course.
So Lori Ingraham, 22 Peacock Circle. I am the library board president, and I so appreciate that you all understand what we're going through, but I also appreciate that you are giving us the minimum amount required, and we're not having to fight for that like area cities and towns have it. So
Leaving money on the table. Oh my God. Do not do that.
Yeah, I think that with a lot of this, the question is trying to, if we are in a situation where we have to make reductions, trying to figure out where we can make reductions without causing cascading additional problems. So
I appreciate that thoughtfulness. Honestly, I do.
Doesn't seem like anybody else has any questions, so I think you're all set.
I just want to add, if anyone has questions about the documents that I didn't share today, please reach out to me. I am happy to share them. In fact, they'll probably be on the library Facebook page and going out in our newsletter on Monday.
Yeah, by all means, please share all of that out. I'll get a chance to review it once my brain is recovered from the last 48
fully
hours.
understand. I just also want to thank you all. I know that there has been working around the clock in all of these. I'm going to let you continue that.
Thank you. Okay. Jonathan, you can come back in now. I think we've done everything except for Public Works and Enterprise. So, Greg, I saw that you were online. Do you want to start walking us through Public Works and Enterprise? Let's start with just Public Works and we'll just go down the line in the order that they appear.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. Did you want to start with no override or override?
Let's, for each thing, so we'll start with Public Works Administration and then so on and so forth. We'll go for each one, no override, sorry, with the override and then without the override. We'll ask questions and then we'll go to the next item.
Sure.
And just, you know, just walk us through each of these because I know there's a lot of, it was for the Public Works. I mean, once it gets into Enterprise, I know that the override is less of a factor, but yeah, let's just go through it.
Sure. So administration, that's myself and the staff in the office, as well as the sustainability coordinator position. You know, one of the largest effects of having a no vote on the override on the DPW will be a fairly significant change to that sustainability coordinator role. And other than that, it's basically just, you know, in most of my budgets, you'll hear me say this, they keep the lights on and the building's heated and the car's running and the truck's operating. I mean, we don't have a lot in the DPW to trim away that, you know, we're moving some staff around on the highway side, but if you have any questions about admin, I can take those now. I mean, with and without the override, without the override on the admin side, with the change in that sustainability coordinator role, there's some significant reduction in state travel and training. Because we had asked for more funding there to support, you know, in-state travel and training for the individual in that role. So
just first of all, because I know it's come up a few times. I know I've been personally asked, and I know I was here when we created the role of the sustainability coordinator, but could you just give a brief description of sort of what that role, what that role does and the ways in which that's beneficial for the city?
So that individual basically acts as a liaison, sort of, if you would, between the Bees Committee and the Girl Scouts and the Energy Advisory Committee and Eversource and some of the funding initiatives that they make available to us, and kind of ties all of that together to make, and you know, in the municipal realm, to make sure that we're getting everything we can, you know, either to those organizations or from those organizations to benefit the city as much as possible. So that, and in addition to that, is just constantly on the lookout for grant funding to try to make energy efficiency upgrades, be it at the high school or at City Hall or any one of our properties. She spent a lot of time over the past few months working with some solar power companies on getting some electric vehicle chargers at the water department and things of that nature to try to modernize and just have, you know, more efficient vehicles. And to have those vehicles, we need to have the infrastructure available to charge them. And so it's just, you know, kind of just spearheading those efforts to try to get those upgrades that we can really benefit from at little or no cost to the city.
And so those are things where we actually have opportunities to realize cost savings. In a way, a lot of this is, in addition to being a liaison to, if I'm hearing you correctly, in addition to being sort of a liaison to various community groups, a big part of this is basically a grant, like a grant writing and a grant seeking position to help realize
Absolutely. Yes, that's a very good way to put it.
Okay. That's good to know. I think that title confused some people, and it's a question that I got, and I thought, I should really actually probably check in about how that position has evolved since it was founded. So, but yeah, all right. So, councilors, any questions about the administration budget before we switch to the no override? Okay. Can we go over to the administration with the no override? So I'm seeing a small reduction in full-time regular. I'm seeing a pretty substantial reduction in sustainability coordinator, and the expenses broadly look fairly similar. Do you want to talk about what would change with the sustainability coordinator, since that seems like the biggest one, plus any other changes you want to touch on?
Sure. So, I mean, the changes you see there are ones that have been discussed earlier as far as the AFSCME staff and their hourly reduction. So that's part of the decrease in funding there. And then the sustainability coordinator role, we were making that, it will become a part-time city funded position. And then we're working to backfill the hours that are eliminated with some grant funding we have available from Eversource for outreach work to help steer residents to some of the programs that Eversource, Mass Save, and Revise have available. That position was recently vacated within the past couple of months. And once these conversations started, I wanted to have a way to, keep the individual employed in our sustainability coordinator role, keep that person an option for full-time employment. So it would be somewhat paid for by the city and the rest through the grant funding that's available from Eversource. So her role would change significantly in that that outreach work role is not only for Easthampton residents. She would also be supporting folks from Northampton and Westhampton. So just kind of a different way to make it work and try to keep it all moving.
Okay. Did I hear you correctly in saying that role is that position's currently vacant, and that this would be, is that what you said?
Yeah, it's an Eversource funded outreach worker role that is currently vacant.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it's a part-time position that we had funding from Eversource for. That the individual that was in that role recently, was looking for a full-time job and was able to get one the last couple months, and this and so it's open right now.
Okay. What would be, if this was the direction that we went and we reduced the sustainability coordinator to a part-time and then sort of merged it with that, with that Eversource part-time thing, what would that, what would the implications of that be for people who are currently receiving those or for the city or for city residents?
Well, it'll be less focus on Easthampton only initiatives, right? I mean, because a good amount of that time will then shift to she could be working in Northampton for the day, or doing an event in Westhampton and working with the folks that live up there. So there's certainly less availability for organizations like the Bees Committee or the Girl Scouts to kind of reach out and help keep their projects moving along. It's just less available for those types of things.
Understand. Councilors, any questions? Councilor Schmidt.
Thank you. Director Letterman, I was just curious if you could tell us a little bit more about the electric and hybrid vehicle leasing line. Specifically, I'm curious how many vehicles that accounts for and what the length remaining is on those leases.
Sure, it's 10. Well, 9 now, because one was a hybrid police cruiser that was totaled in an accident in March. So it's 9, and they were our 5-year lease, so there'll be about 4 years left on those.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone from the public have any questions about the administration portion of? Yes, Kathy.
So Heather was in the override. So if I understand the description of the sustainability person's role is a non-essential staff person, someone who doesn't provide health and safety, education, anything like that to anybody in the community. So it seems like it would be a reasonable thing to cut from a budget completely to be able to maintain somebody who is essential.
Greg, do you want to respond to that?
No, I mean, that's an opinion. That's, it's certainly viable. I mean, I really don't have much. It's, you know, that position was created at the direction of the last mayoral administration, and that's it came to the DPW, and it was, you know, the direction the last administration wanted to go in, and that's why it exists.
Okay.
I have a question, Mike Carabawton. Can you describe some results that sustainability coordinator has brought forward to the city?
Sure. You know, she's been instrumental in helping get a pollinator garden established behind the mills off the bike path there. Really worked a lot with the Girl Scouts and on that and the Bees Committee. We recently done a lot of exploration around getting some energy efficiency upgrades at the high school, as far as LED lights and things of that nature. Unfortunately, some of those initiatives come along with a match that we haven't been able to provide. So it's been challenging, given that we can't, you know, say we can get, you know, 200, and I'm just not coming, kind of speaking from the cuff here, but, you know, if we can get $200,000 in LED light bulbs, but we have to match 100. Well, if we can't do that match, it's not any as advantageous as a situation is where it is, obviously. So we do have some applications out now that we're waiting for answers, yes or no, on for a fully electric van for the water department to use for meter service, and an application for chargers for that, for 3 chargers for that building. So we should have an answer on that soon. So it's kind of, these things take a while. She only started late last fiscal year. So
limited results.
Yes, basically.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, let's move to the next item, which is fuel. Greg, do you want to walk us through?
Yeah, so fuel, that's heating oil, gas for the entire city fleet. That's the police department, the fire department, parks department. That's every vehicle in the city fleet accessing that funding, and it's generally it's heavily dependent on you know, things going on in the world, just like everybody else's gas prices are. It adjusts based on I can't think of the language in the contract off the top of my head, but there is an adjustment clause in the fuel contract for things going on in the world that tend to change gas prices. So it can be a little unpredictable.
In light of that, I'm wondering if you feel like, I mean, so this is flat, which I understand we're, you know, the situation that we're in, but do you worry that, I mean, it just seems like since this time last year, gas prices have just about doubled. Are we setting ourselves up for a big shortfall here?
It's hard to say. I mean, they could go, you know, let's all hope they go back down as fast as they went up, but that's probably wishful thinking. So yeah, there really could be.
Okay. Does the fuel item change at all with? So it's the same one way or another. So that makes sense.
Yeah, a lot of these really have to be, because they're very minimal anyway. So you'll see that with recycling, the snow budget. Like, you know, this is the money we need for the city to operate.
Yeah, totally understood. We're just following this process.
Yeah.
So, okay, any questions about fuel? Anybody?
I care about one thing. Is that broken down by on the fuel? Like what entity is filling up? Like one account for police, one account for fire. Do you have it separated?
We can separate it by vehicle with the fueling software. But
because then you can identify who's using what. And
Yeah, oh, no, we can do that with the fueling software we have. However, as funding wise, it comes
you do
from
that
one
now?
bucket. I'm sorry?
Do you do that now?
We can, yeah.
But you don't.
Well, I didn't say we don't. I said we can. It's in the fueling software. If someone were to ask me which vehicle used how much fuel at what in what period of time, we can certainly pull that out of the software.
But ultimately, they're not charging the departments for using the fuel. It's, I mean, we have one department that purchases all the fuel.
Yeah.
They end up.
Okay. This way you know who's using what.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions on fuel? Let's talk about the engineer item.
So the engineering staff is two full-time employees. The main difference there between override and no override is their step increases that they're due to receive July 1st if the override were to pass. If not, it's my understanding that salaries are frozen. However, they're not union employees, so they're not affected by the hourly cut.
Okay.
Other than that, their budget is fairly minimal for.
Councilors, any questions here?
Just things like education and training, it says $600. Is that like, do they have to have like certification or anything like that annually, or is this?
Yeah, absolutely. There's required training contact hours for the city engineer to maintain her professional engineering certification. There may be a requirement for a certain type of stormwater. There's a whole bunch of different certifications that they need to keep up on.
Okay. Members of the public, any question about the engineering budget? Right. Let's move on to highway.
So highway, the largest change there versus override and no override is either elimination of heavy motor equipment operator position. That position is currently underfilled. We have a pretty challenging time bringing in fully licensed CDL drivers. And what I've done over the past few years is hire some laborers that we kind of bring along through the system of getting certifications and help them get their hoisting licenses, hydraulic certifications, CDL B license, so we can put them in a large truck for the plowing season. And we'll have certainly one less person there, fully staffed. I do have a laborer in that role now that will be moving over, should the override not be successful, be moving over to the sewer department.
And the sewer department is enterprise, so.
Yes.
Okay.
We have a number of openings there.
Right. Any changes when it comes to the expenses?
We did have to make some cuts through the highway budget. One of the larger ones was in the bituminous concrete line item. That's the only one I could take anything really from. And that was, I think it was about 30,000 for blacktop for patching. So, I mean, one thing that we certainly, should the override not be successful, we certainly won't see sometimes at the end of the fiscal year when we get there, if we don't have a hugely heavy pothole season or other set of circumstances that arises that really depletes the bituminous items, we'll go and pave some side streets generally at the end of the fiscal year. Like last year we did Mayer, Bay Avenue and Grove. It's getting tired. And that is, in-house with city funding, not Chapter 90 funding. And that will be practically impossible should the override not be successful next fiscal year. The projects of that nature.
Right. Councilor Denham?
In regards to the salary line and the individual that if it doesn't pass, if they were to move over to the enterprise, would that overtime go up on that next line? if that person moved over?
Would it go up in the department they're moving to or in the highway department?
In the highway department, would the override, or would the overtime go up if that person moved over, the other person moved over to the enterprise?
Hard to say. I mean, not really. A lot of the overtime that the highway staff gets is snow related.
Okay.
And then other overtime they get is like working at the brush dump or recycling center on the weekend, and that's generally more senior staff. So it's kind of, I guess the short answer to the question is really no.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
I guess my question to follow up on that then would be, so paving of side streets, obviously there's a lot of side streets in Easthampton, so I think and many of us live on them, not me. I live right on the highway, but I think for like, what would be the impact of moving that one individual from highway over to the enterprise? Like, what would be harder to do? What wouldn't get done as a result? I think you mentioned there might be one less plow out in the winter. Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah, well, I mean, there certainly could be. It would be what it means is going to just take longer to do things. I think kind of like John had mentioned earlier, like instead of being out mowing every week, it might be every 10 days. And it's going to be similar things for us where, and I mean, I constantly tell myself, at DPW, we're never going to have enough money to do everything we need to do. It's just the nature of it. And it's part of my job and the staff at the DPW, and I think we all do a great job of it, is just doing what we can with what we have and what the city's able to give us for resources. So what you might see is the grass gets a little bit taller on the side of the road along the guardrails because we don't have enough people to go out and weed whack like we normally do. Or when we do, when we close the mountain and do the maintenance up on the mountain, we might not be able, we're certainly not be able to pick up as much litter or do as much trimming and do as good of a job at doing the things that we do. It's just, my people will pick up the slack and do the best they can, with what they have. That's just part of our core value at the DPW, to just do everything we can. So.
Understood. Councilor Schmidt.
Thank you. And bear with me as I kind of assemble this thought, because it's a little bit bigger than where I'm going to start here. But so you just mentioned, Director Nettleman, essentially needing you're going to do the work with what you have, and you may just need to do the work a little bit less often, like we heard from Director Mason. And it makes me think about something we hear a lot, which is that the city often spends money on things and then doesn't take care of them. And I believe that's relevant here, and it's relevant in other things that we've heard at previous budget hearings, that if we make these cuts, there are going to be significant instances of deferred maintenance that we're not going to be able to afford in this coming year. And so first and foremost, I just want to put that out there as something for people to consider. If you've ever felt like the city is not doing what it needs to do to take care of what it has, then not passing the override is going to reinforce that. We will not be able to take care of things that we have, including, as we just mentioned, the shared spaces that we all utilize here in the city. And so to bring that back around to this budget, I see several, or at least a few different lines that seem to refer to maintenance. Obviously, there are not really much in the way of cuts there. They're fairly modest to begin with, but I wonder if you could just talk for a second about kind of these maintenance lines and kind of what those are going towards, and kind of the breakdown there.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, a lot of it, when you see maintenance, a lot of it is maintenance on our trucks and equipment that we need, really to just keep the city running. So I think it was like one of our larger dump trucks today was I got notified in a $4,000 repair. That's just the parts. It's things like that. Repairs on the sidearm mower that goes out and cuts, the roadside mower, works in a pretty harsh environment and it's a high maintenance machine. Tires on all of our trucks. It just goes on and on with, our fleet is, this whole city fleet's better right around 100 vehicles. So that's not just the DPW, but that's everybody. And it's a lot goes into keeping all that running.
Here, did I see your hand?
Yeah, is that time for?
Unless councilors, any further questions on highway, then by all means.
So a couple of questions. One, you can't predict how much fuel costs are going to be. What happens when you exceed the budget? Where does that money come from to pay for that overage as an appropriation?
I can do this. So historically, that normally there'll be an appropriation usually.
But from general stabilization?
Usually from free cash. That assumes that we have free cash, so.
Similarly, I was going to ask, snow and ice removal. There was $600,000.
We're gonna get to that. That's a separate item, right? Yeah. So we'll get to that soon.
I guess more generally, when things are going above and beyond what we anticipate for costs, with no override, we're only going to have 500,000 in stabilization. And this year alone, there's been 600,000 unanticipated for snow and ice alone. So where will that money come from, I guess, is my question.
Yeah, so historically, usually what's happened in my time on the council has been that we get our free cash certified, and the free cash has most times that I've been on, it's been a pretty significant, it's been a few $1 million. And usually at that point, the things that have, we almost always end up appropriating some funds for snow and ice because it's really hard to predict. And so it's often one that same thing if fuel goes up, it's pretty common for that to be there. There's some overtime budgets that are hard to predict, but pretty consistently. Public safety overtime is almost always there. So these things almost always come out of free cash. That's fine, so long as we are consistently getting certified free cash. If you ended up in a situation like where those expenses that overran ended up exceeding your free cash, or where your free cash was very small, that's when suddenly this becomes a huge problem. Those are dice that the city's been rolling since long before I got here, because the alternative is you need a bigger budget, but yeah, it is it's a valid point. But I think that normally that has been able to come out of free cash. The nightmare scenario is ones where you don't have enough free cash, and then you got to jump into general stabilization, except for that you used a lot of that. And so suddenly you're in so that is that would be a very serious problem.
Snow and ice, if you declare an emergency, you can deficit spend. So basically, if you run $600,000 short, you could spend it, but then you have to pay for it out of the next year. So you'd be looking at 600 coming right off the top of 28.
Right.
Do you think the state might have done something this year with the huge snow and ice that allowed a longer amortization of the snow and ice? So that could be another possibility as well.
Right. That's all hope for less snow next winter. Oh, climate change will take care of that. Exactly.
Is that in the budget? No snow.
Okay. Any other questions about the highway department budget? No? All right. Let's keep moving. And here we are with snow emergency.
I think it says no snow.
No, please don't snow. I like the snow, but let's be reasonable. Greg, do you want to talk about?
Yeah, so the snow budget is funded at that $150,000 a year. We have to fund that at the same amount we did the prior fiscal year. Right. So that's what we start the season with, and then we hope that that's enough. Generally, it's not. I mean, the cost of salt and just the expectations of people to have black roads in the winter tend to chew through that funding fairly quickly. I think last the end of last fiscal year when we closed out snow, I think it was about $275 or $280,000. And it's like we got about twice as much snow this year, right? So that's why a figure is as high as it is, so more than twice as much snow. So.
Yeah. Questions on the snow?
Between either? Or just with?
Through this.
So,
Just
yeah,
yes.
so how does the budget change in the case of the override?
For snow, it doesn't. It has to be funded. Maybe a better question for Auditor Patel, but it's my understanding that we legally have to fund snow at the amount as it was funded in the prior fiscal year to be able to deficit spend it.
Okay.
Snow is the same across.
Yeah. Okay, I got confused for a second because one of the budgets just has the subtotals and the other one has the total.
We've noted that. Apologies for that.
That makes sense. It just, I looked at the bottom and they were different, but I see what's going on there now. Okay. Let's move on. Or questions about snow? Any additional? No? Okay. Let's talk streetlights.
So streetlights, that funding is there for the energy associated with keeping them on, and then the repairs associated with keeping them operating. That's all that funds.
Okay.
Without the override, we did have to remove some funding from there for repairs. So you could see some streetlights, possibly go without being fixed next year. However, as painful as it was, the LED changeover we went through a few years ago has really cut down on the amount of repairs we need to do because so many of the streetlights are still so new from that project.
Okay. Yeah, all right. So, and that's the professionals, technical services is the repairs?
Yes. Yeah, we do not employ an electrician in the city, so all of our electrical work of that nature has to be contracted out.
Councilors, questions?
I mean, it's not a big deal, but help me understand why is the energy different? Why is it $4,000 cheaper to, that just we're just gonna make it.
It was just a way of getting the additional cut we were asked to make in there. We were confident in that with the LED lights we have out there now that energy costs stay relatively stagnant, that we should be able to get through next fiscal year energy wise with that figure.
Yep, I got it.
But I do have to say that with the caveat, like, we do need to keep them on, so it could be back for an appropriation to make that up.
Right. It is a slightly more conservative estimate.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, good catch. All right, any questions about streetlights? Let's move on.
So the next is obviously motor repair. So that's 2 full-time staff, both 40-hour week union employees. So the salaries there are there's no change salary wise between override and no override. As far as their budget is relatively minimal just to kind of keep the shop operating. Most of the repairs that they do will be paid for by the department whose vehicle is being repaired. There is some funding there for I don't know, you'll see professional services like to get the vehicle lifts inspected, the waste oil heater fixed, things like that.
Okay. And how does this one change without?
It does not.
It does not. Okay.
They seem like fixed costs, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, they really are.
Okay. Councilors, any questions on motor repair? Public, any questions on motor repair?
Right. They're not asked me either.
Now, the DPW staff's in its own, two different unions.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay. All right, let's keep going then.
Next is traffic, where you will see some significant change with and without the override.
All right.
With it stays, relatively the same as it is, for this fiscal year. Without, we did have to make some significant reduction there. And what we'll see, what we generally fund with that funding is like the long line painting, the yellow lines, the long white lines. We don't do that in-house. We have that all contracts out. So we may have to, we may not be able to freshen up every long line in town next fiscal year if the override's not successful. And then usually when we get to the end of the fiscal year there too, like I talked about paving some small side streets, we'll try to upgrade some crosswalk signs to LED or stop signs, things like that. So, chances are the funding won't be available for those kind of small improvements.
Okay. Councilors, any questions there? Anyone from the public? All right, let's move on to recycling and hazardous waste.
Yeah, no changes there either. That is the kind of the minimal funding we need to keep the recycling center on Northampton Street and the brush dump operating.
Okay. Any questions about recycling hazardous waste? Anyone from the public? All right, let's do trash.
Yeah, trash again, no changes. It's really just the minimal funding we need to have for the dumpsters at all the city buildings to get emptied.
Don't want to see that cut.
Becomes a public health thing real fast.
Yeah.
Raccoons would be happy.
Yeah, the raccoons. God, we're gonna have another raccoon war. Okay.
So landfill.
Well, not like that.
Raises police overtime.
Yeah. All right. Any questions from anybody about trash? All right, let's move on to landfill.
Sure. So you'll see a significant increase in the budget is the same with or without the override for management of the two capped closed city landfills. We're on the hook for perpetual maintenance for those two properties. The contract we had with Stantec expired. We put out a request for quotes for a new professional services contract for all the groundwater testing and annual third-party inspections that were required to perform at the landfills. And we only had one firm submit a response. So we had to accept that. And the cost is significantly more than it was in the years past. So there's also been some minor changes to the required inspection. So it's just leading to additional cost.
All right. Is there, so this is this seems like a situation that I hear about a good deal where there's something that absolutely needs to get done. We put out an RFP, one person comes back, the price is not great, or well, it is what it is, but the price is more than we were looking to pay. Has there ever been a thought for some of these things of trying to do some sort of intermunicipal collaboration to, I don't know, like, I guess I don't even know what the actual professional services around a landfill entail.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be a great thing for something like the thing is they all have different requirements too, though. I mean, these are the only two cap landfills I've ever dealt with, but I have heard of some of them that have, given their proximity to other resources, if they have increased levels of testing. So I think it'd be kind of a very challenging thing to regionalize, just because they can be so different. I mean, ours on Oliver Street isn't terribly far from Northampton's closed landfill on Glendale Road, but it's my understanding that they definitely have different levels of scrutiny that they're under, perpetually, just due to the year that they were closed or the type of waste that was put there over the years. So I think it'd be a tough thing to kind of standardize and regionalize, if you know what I mean.
Makes sense. Councilors, do you have any questions? Anyone from the public have questions about the landfill?
Just a comment. I mean, it's just a huge increase from 3 years ago to now.
Yeah, I didn't like it either. I mean, one thing, yeah, we tried. We reached out to a number of firms and sent out, the whole packet with our, what's required, and we had one response.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's keep going. Okay, that's DPW. So I guess
one more after cemeteries.
after the cemeteries. Tree warden.
Yep. So the differences there, with and without the override, are just a reduction in the professional services line for tree work, which is really largely reactive. So we just kind of hope that we don't have, a large wind event or significant tree failures.
Okay. Yes, it's basically just level funded. Does that change at all with the override or without it?
There's some reduction in the tree warden services line without the override.
Okay. Sorry, you just said that. My brain is starting to go.
I understand though, Tom. I understand why it's a lot of numbers, a lot of.
And again, I have noted that bottom line is also missing in the with override, so that'll be amended.
Thank you, Evan. All right.
I can always say it before you do. Okay.
I don't know if you'll allow this. I actually do have a question I just thought of regarding the landfill. Director Nolan, I was curious if you have any sense as to why there was maybe a lack of, I'll call it interest in the RFP regarding the landfill. Is it like particularly challenging? Are there less companies doing the work?
I think it's less companies and less qualified staff. I think it's something that almost every industry is up against right now. The last firm that was holding the firm that was holding our agreement the past few years, they were coming down from New Hampshire to do it, and they ended up not responding. I have to be careful. They didn't do I'm hoping the next firm does a little bit more of a thorough job. If you understand what I'm saying.
All right. That's interesting. It just feels like a problem that I hear every year about one sort of thing or another. So I don't have a solution there, but it's just like hey, as we go into this tough time, maybe we can find some way to be, and I have seen city staff be very creative about some of these things. So I'm just.
Yeah, the landfills are extra challenging because the inspections are required to be carried out by a third party. We cannot do them ourselves.
Right. Yeah. Okay, cool. Let's keep, so that's it for DPW. So now we can talk about enterprise. And if I'm correct here, which I'm pretty sure I am, because enterprise is funded externally, there's not going to be any changes. So we don't have to do the override, no override. Let's just talk about how things have changed, what's changing going forward, and what new challenges or opportunities you're seeing here. But we'll start with sewer.
Sure. I mean, it's really largely the same as it has been last year. We are required to have a certain number of staff on the actually really throughout the enterprise, between the wastewater plant, the sanitary sewer collections group, and the drinking water staff. So it's, really largely the same as it has been in years past. I mean, we are seeing increases for equipment, especially water meters, especially. Fire hydrants, you'll probably see an appropriation for some fire hydrants we need to replace very soon. That I'll be working on. We're seeing.
Let's just start with sewer, though. If that's okay.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's any particular questions, I mean, that's the funding for the sanitary sewer collections and stormwater repairs. And the crew there are all union staff.
That increases. Okay. Do anyone have any questions about sewer? Okay. I don't have any specific questions. I'm just trying to do this methodically so that I don't gloss over something. No, yeah, it seems like most of what I'm seeing is the same other than the salaries, which are, yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, they go up a little based on their collective bargaining agreement. But a number of those positions, especially in the sewer department, are open. I only have 3 people there now.
How many would you like to have? Sorry, Councilor, I do see your hand. I just blurted out a question on my own. How many, like, ideally would we have?
Our full staff down there, I think, is 6, or is it? It's listed there, 5.5 or 6 with the supervisor. So you'll see in sewer and water that they're 5.5 and they're 6.5 and 5.5. That's because there's the supervisor salary is paid half from each. We have one supervisor that oversees water, stormwater, and sanitary sewer collection.
Okay.
So I'd love to have the 6 there, but we just have not been able, with our salaries where they are and the dollars that can be made in the construction industry. We have a very difficult time competing and keeping those positions full.
Councilor Denham?
Real quick, education and training, I'm assuming they have to have certification annually?
Yeah, absolutely. To maintain their hoisting licenses, and asbestos and pipe certifications, things like that the guys on those crews have to have.
Okay. Any other questions about the sewer? Let's move on. Water.
So that is our staff on the drinking water side. All union. You have one underfilled position over there, and it's really just the funding to keep it all happening for the year. I mean, one thing we have increased there was water meters, just because I spoke about it at a meeting a few weeks ago, but the change that the city made about 20 years ago going to the radial style meters and seeing the planned obsolescence of that equipment come to fruition, and the batteries failing, and the amount of meters that we need to be changing out is increasing. So
it's not that the meters themselves are getting way more expensive. It's just that they're failing at a higher rate.
It's a little bit of both. It's a little bit of both. We pay right around $400 for a standard residential 5/8 water meter now with the radio integrated.
Yeah, wow. And they last up, you said about
20 years. Yeah, the state would really prefer us not let them get any older than 15 because they want, but it's just not realistic. I mean, we have, everyone knows we have made some significant rate increases, but to do meters they'll only let them get 15 years old it'd be a significant burden on the ratepayers to try to fund that.
Yeah, I understand. That makes sense. Councilors, questions on water? All right, let's keep moving.
So wastewater, again, a number of open positions, all union staff, really just the funding that we need to have there to operate the wastewater plant, dispose of the sludge, and do what we can to make the plant better all the time. So
actually, I've got a question here. So when we have positions that are open, is this the salaries line that we have here? Is that the salaries that we would need to fund a fully staffed office?
Yes.
Okay, so then if you don't find those people, that just rolls over to enterprise retained earnings?
Yes.
Okay.
And we are required by Mass DEP to have a certain number of staff. And we do the best we can to meet that requirement.
Sure.
it's not a unique problem to Easthampton. Believe me, lots of water and sewer departments are struggling for staff.
Well, if anyone's online and you're looking for a career in public works, you should step up. I think, all right, so yeah, any other big changes in wastewater that we should know about?
Well, we do have a retirement coming up there where the supervisor is retiring about right around the middle of July. So we will have a vacancy there. We're working on filling right now.
Okay. Good to know. Counselors, any questions?
Just to make sure I understand, and I think it was clear in this case, if we're required to have a certain number of staff in a department, then you're going to try to fill those positions. I'm just curious, I feel like throughout this process, we've heard about certain positions that are open that are subject to a hiring freeze and others that are not. And I don't know, maybe this is more of a question for you, Mayor, but I think I've kind of lost track of why on many of them. And I don't know if there's something you could say.
Yeah, I can address that. So the hiring fees is related to positions that will be funded by the general fund. So because this is enterprise and it's a self-funding mechanism, there is currently no hiring freeze.
Okay. And there are no other positions that are coming out of the general fund that we are trying to hire for, or there should not be.
So one of the things about the hiring freeze is we will make a case-by-case exception for positions that are essential. So one of the things is we right now have a vacancy in the assessors department for a data collector. So I think we ended up pulling that, but we're planning on trying to get somebody to fill that position. I think that should be reposted again once in the next 2 weeks once we figure out what's going on. But so there are certain positions like the building inspector needed a clerk, and that's a 2-person department, so we needed to make sure that that was filled. So the building inspector, and then as we all knew, the collections having a part-time person there. So as things come up that are deemed essential, that's where we'll take it as a case-by-case basis.
Gotcha. Thank you. That's helpful.
So just a follow-up to that regarding the assessors, since we've already gone through the assessors. So that was I believe a $10,000 position. Is that what you're saying, 10,000, or you're gonna post it?
Yeah, so we're gonna that the 10,000 is not a placeholder, but it's what we're gonna try to get away with a part-time person in the near term, with the kind of intention to try to backfill that and make it a more robust position.
And I also do believe that it was posted differently than what we're having it. So it was change from part-time permanent to part-time temp or something along the lines of there was a change in how we're going to be advertising that position too. So that was part of the reason why it was pulled.
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand.
It's full-time even, so.
If it's gonna be full-time or.
It was 20 hours a week, part-time benefited. Yeah. And the new position, I think, is 10 hours a week, non-benefited. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other things we want to touch on enterprise? We did go over the enterprise reserve.
I don't think we've done that yet.
So putting 15,000. It's 15,000 every year. I'm just taking a guess here that this is like a statutory thing.
It is it's not necessarily statutory. It's just a policy the city's had. I've got a little bit more information on it. Here, if I could find it, there were some questions came up on it in 2024 that FY 2015 to current 30,000. So it's a certain amount of money has been put into that account every year. It doesn't look like it's been consistently the same this year. We have it at $15,000. It's or is it 30 altogether? 30,000. So I think it's been consistently 30,000 since, I'm sorry, I'm clicking between screens here. Consistently 30,000 since 2015, and that money is there for us to access in the case that enterprise retained earnings aren't accessible and we have a need for that funding. I've been director since 2020 and we haven't had to access. I don't know that it's ever been accessed, but it's always there in the budget.
Okay. Any questions, councilors?
I don't have a question. I just have a comment. Director Numbleman, I just want you to know how much your staff is appreciated. And I know it's a lot of really challenging work that I think goes unrecognized. And so, I know I've said this before. I want you to know that your staff does a lot for the city. And, Councilor Peakus, Chair Peakus said this a number of times, is the public health that is protected through the work of them. And, it's just, it can't be said enough how much they are appreciated, and just want to acknowledge the hard work that they do in the city.
Yeah, thank you, Councilor. I appreciate you saying that. We have a really great group of people at the DPW that certainly get a lot done and really do a really great job. So one of the most important things to me throughout this process was to just try to preserve our staff as best we can, because they really do go above and beyond every day to get everything to happen with limited resources.
Okay. Yes, completely agree with all of that. Okay, I think that's everything we need to touch on for the night. Does anybody disagree?
Do you want me to stick around for that snow appropriation?
I think we're going to do the snow appropriation at a different time.
Okay.
Once we're there's a bunch of appropriations here that don't need to be voted on by next Wednesday, and so I think we're probably going to touch on those the week after that, just so that we just can come at that with a fresh set of eyes.
Sure.
The one we needed to, we did last night.
We have some unclassified that we missed last time.
Yes, yeah. Let's talk, and Kate, are you the right person to talk to about the remaining unclassified work?
Can talk
Or
to
is that-
retirement, and I can talk about OPEB. Medicare would be.
Okay, super.
Are you still awake? I'm still over here.
So you're all set with me for tonight then, right?
Yes, we're all set, Greg.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night. Hope you get out of there soon.
Chair for my office. We're in a budget crisis. I'm not losing this. Chair to the meeting.
Fantastic. Okay.
So
Yes, I got it right.
Numbers, but I just want to make sure.
Yes, 1 second. What are we starting with?
So yeah, I think it's really this, right? It's the OPEB.
The retirement, the contributory retirement,
Mhm.
both whether it's a yes override or no override, is the same amount. The way it gets calculated is every 2 years, retirement board has an assessment for.
You just scroll up to retirement.
So you that one there.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I thought that's what you.
That's good. So every 2 years, there's an assessment for the retirement, what we owe people and what's the contribution those 2 years on the basis of the salary. If I remember this correctly, that will get estimated, calculated on the salary as of September 30th for all the active employees and retired employees. And this is the second year of the round, which we did 2 years ago, and we are going through currently the evaluation again. So that appropriation for 28 and 29 is in process of calculation currently.
Okay. Any,
And so this is essentially, this is an estimate, until,
This is actual.
okay.
So the evaluation took place 2 years ago for 2 years.
Okay, we're still
So now
in that.
we are doing, and the weirdest thing is that they go by calendar year, we go by fiscal year. So they take the salaries as of September 30th to estimate from following January to December and January to December, so for 2 years. Though it's a valuation for January to December, we owe the money in July. And it has like a stricter date. So it's like, they give us the appropriation in January for fiscal year starting in July. And there's a whole process between how it goes from the city account to retirement account, and from retirement account to your apps account. So, and it all needs to be done by July 31st by law.
Right, and so the assessment that is currently happening will be for next calendar year?
Next 2 calendar years, which is going to be on our next 2 fiscal year budgets of 28 and 29.
all right. And then the next one is Medicare. Yeah, let's do Medicare.
So, Medicare is a 50-50 split. The city pays 50% for the payroll. We level funded it. I'm sure you are all aware from your time on the council that every year we come back and ask for an appropriation because estimating it is an extremely tricky challenge. So it's level funded right now, more than likely it's gonna need an appropriation at the end of the year. I believe the one in front of you probably on Monday that you're gonna look at, or when you get to your appropriations, is 20,000 to get us to the end of this fiscal year.
So it's not just a challenge, it's a tricky challenge.
A tricky challenge. It's sticky. Well, I like the word sticky. It's pretty sticky. Especially with the end of the year
Yeah.
school. Payroll has 2 payrolls. One's a balloon, one's not. You never know what you're gonna get at that point.
Police outside detail.
I'm sorry?
Police outside detail.
And police outside detail. Thank you.
Okay, this is probably not the year to, I just want to like voice my general thing, like I do have to go for an appropriation. I think my gut tightens up a little because I'm like, but what if we don't have the money then?
Uncharted
It's-
territory right now.
I mean, every year is uncharted territory since I got here, I think, but not because of me, but like, I just, it's just like, I think that it's, you know, there is like, I just want to voice that like, you know, that has been the way that we've done budgets the entire time I've been here, and this is probably not the year to start rocking that cart, but there is an extent to which I just have a certain discomfort with the idea that like we always sort of take for granted that we're going to certify enough free cash to go for all these appropriations for things that we kind of know we're underfunding. And it just makes me a little uncomfortable, but I don't know what to do about it, so let's just keep going, I guess.
In the future, is it possible to be more conservative?
Yeah, in a perfect world, I would take all our payrolls, average them out, and probably put a modest increase to them and budget for that. Yes.
What's the current difference between the perfect world and where we're living?
Money.
Okay, yeah, well, that is sort of the problem, isn't it? That's sort of the entire thing.
It also sounds like about $20,000, if that's the appropriation we're expecting for this year.
Yeah,
And that's for city and schools, just to say that out.
so it'll probably be bigger next year, but although I guess if
If the override does not pass and there are cuts,
that would
it
affect
could go down, yes.
Okay. We went over the 32B stuff. Liability insurance. Did we touch liability? We did touch liability insurance. Okay. A lot has happened since then, so I apologize. Okay, let's go to the next page. OPEB. Let's talk OPEB.
So historically, what we were doing is we were contributing towards OPEB 10% of the previous year's budget.
Mm-hmm.
This year, the difference between no override and yes override is our financial policy. Our financial policy says that we will be contributing somewhere from 5 to 10%. So for no override, we took 5% of the previous fiscal year budget. That would be the contribution. And with yes override, we're going to stay with what we've been doing for all these many years. That 10% of the previous fiscal year budget is this year's contribution.
Makes sense. Any questions, councilors?
Can you just clarify for me what OPEB stands for?
I can never remember.
Other post-employment benefits.
But I can explain to you. The whole thing has to do with when we retire and we have all these benefits. So there is a retirement funding and there is an OPEB funding. Retirement funding is mandated by the MGL, but the OPEB, it's still up in the air. If you can, then you should. There's no percentage you have to reach by certain fiscal year. It's pretty wide open, but whatever you can contribute, and as long as you're consistent, it doesn't affect your bond rating. So, and I don't know how it's going to play out with, though we are going within the policy that it should be from 5 to 10%. We are taking 5% for no override, 10% for yes override. I do not know how it's going to play with the bond rating.
I would say that they're definitely going to flag it on our bond rating if our percentage of contribution is going to go down even a tiny bit. So it could affect that AA+ that we have to borrow money.
That seems bad.
So why wouldn't we just do the same proposal? I know it's money, but
It goes along with the stabilization funds as well. If we could keep the stabilization funds there, we should keep the stabilization funds there. It would keep our bond rating. So I think Councillor Peak said it correctly earlier. It's a gamble that we're doing right now.
The community I worked for previously, they would go in and some years they wouldn't fund anything. And they currently have a AAA bond rating. I don't think, I mean, it's important, but that fund, it's not like retirement. It's assuming how much you need. If everybody that's working for the city today retired and started collecting retirees' health insurance, and that's not a likely scenario. That would happen.
Okay.
well, thank you.
Yeah,
All
thanks.
of you. Thank you, all three of you.
Reserve fund, we're paying 2,000. Which reserve fund exactly are we talking about when it says reserve fund?
It's for that unforeseen. We always keep this money as per the financial policies, and these are for the times when an emergency occurs, while we are waiting to get free cash certified, or if we have to do the transfers at the end of the fiscal year between July 1st and July 15th, and we don't have free cash available because free cash expires on June 30th, all those transfers takes out of this account.
Okay. How much money is currently in the reserve fund?
I have to go back and check for this account for this fiscal year.
Yeah, like right now.
Actually,
It should be like 175 or something like that.
I do not remember if I don't think we have done any, but I can get back to you.
Okay, that's fine.
I have to read this one. We should have $174,170. But I can confirm that.
Okay. And unemployment compensation appropriation.
We talked about that.
Got that one already. Okay. All right. Any final questions about the unclassified stuff that we talked about tonight? Okay, just one thing before we wrap up. So we're planning to meet Monday, but we talked last night to say that we didn't we weren't going to commit to voting on everything Monday. So what I'm open to just sort of what I'm envisioning Monday is going to look like is that any follow-up questions that we have, we'll ask, and that we can start talking among ourselves about suggestions for amendments. But if there's places where we need to think things through or we need additional information, there's no pressure for us to make all of those decisions that night. But that'll be the start of that point so that we can have those conversations in a space where we're allowed to talk about this. And sort of figure out what additional information we need to finalize those decisions. Does that make sense? Okay. Mm-hmm.
So if there is a discussion about cut and indeed the cuts are made, that means that we have to have like a day or two to revisit the revenue calculation because it has to balance even with the reduced budget.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to redo enterprise calculation, enterprise chargeback calculation, and the revenue projection again.
Mm-hmm. And so, I think we haven't actually scheduled an additional date. That's probably something I'd prefer to do on Monday, frankly, or in the meantime, I'm just kind of decompensating. And so, but yes, I hear you. So anything that we're going to want to do, we'll need to give you some time. That completely makes sense. If there's any clarity about hey, I need all of this information by this day, just feel free to email that and we will make sure that.
I need to know what kind of changes you're making. So if there is an account which does not affect the enterprise chargeback, then it will be a different story for me.
Yeah. So let's start talking then on Monday about that, and we'll be able to explore what the implications of those, whatever amendments people might have would be. Does that make sense?
So from my standpoint of view, it would be a recommendation from the city finance committee to the city council. What if it doesn't pass at the city council? Do I have to redo the calculation, reverse the calculation?
Probably, but I guess they better pass our recommendation.
I mean, I don't know. I think it's such a hard conversation to have, just given the circumstances. So,
I suppose that sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I'm saying I obviously they could say no, right? But some of them would say, yeah, that makes sense. Right?
I mean,
so it's kind of hard to guesstimate there.
We'd be voting on the 17th, right? So if our proposed budget came forward and there ended up being a bunch of things that they shot down or wanted to cut further or anything like that, I suppose at that point we'd have to schedule an emergency meeting to make those adjustments and vote on a final thing with the proper revenue.
Just for my purposes, how soon can do emergency meeting? Does that have to be?
You'd have to do it after the 17th.
After the 17th. The week after that.
Weekend. Yeah.
Weekend. That will give us something.
Yeah. I mean, and it could theoretically be like a week and a half. I mean, as long as it's by the end of June, we were okay. So, we've got just a little under half of the month happens after June 17th. So I don't think we're
Are you
like.
sure it's half the month? I'm getting a lot of numbers in my head.
17 is like just a little bit more than half of 30. I'm pretty sure I can still do that kind of math. So I think, yeah, that we should be, I think we'll be able to, if we have to cross that bridge, I think we'll have time to figure it out.
And I'm pretty sure I will confirm with Marianne too on this, but if on the 17th, if instead of ending the public hearing for the budget, you continue the public hearing, it doesn't have to be re-advertised.
Yes.
So you can just do even the following Monday, which would be like the 22nd or Or
whenever.
or
I mean, if we
whenever,
continue it, you
like
can do whenever.
even the next day if needed.
Yeah, but probably the next day probably wouldn't work for
Well,
you.
he's gonna need time
to.
Right, so just, Hate'll choose a day that works for you and we'll make it work. Like,
If you only need 2 hours, we're gonna stay there that night. and
All
wait
right.
for you to do it.
Can you realize
I-
that it's gonna be budget and all the appropriation on the
Yeah,
same
yeah.
night?
It's, well, that was last year too.
Well, that's why, no, I think if we do the appropriations on Monday,
Yeah.
there's a public hearing on Monday for them, so we can get those done on.
Oh, yeah. Let's see what we can get done there, yeah.
Yes, we just do that.
Okay.
But we have to make sure we set a public hearing.
How many time to leave?
Yeah, that makes sense.
I thought we
Okay.
couldn't do that this time.
Okay. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Motion is second, all in favor. Thanks, everybody.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.